Testing.
The delegates into the meeting, please. Again. Will the sergeant at arms please get the delegates in? Got an awful lot of business to take care of this morning. Got an awful lot of vacant seats here this morning, too. Let's get back. Line up for the shooting. Will the delegates please be seated? Will please be in order. This morning, we're fortunate to have with us a most distinguished Mississippian, Dr. Davis.
Testing.
The delegates into the meeting, please. Again. Will the sergeant at arms please get the delegates in?
Testing.
The delegates into the meeting, please. Again. Will the sergeant at arms please get the delegates in? Got an awful lot of business to take care of this morning. Got an awful lot of vacant seats here this morning, too. Let's get back. Line up for the shooting. Will the delegates please be seated? Will please be in order. This morning, we're fortunate to have with us a most distinguished Mississippian, Dr. Davis, who is head of the president of the Baptist Seminary and chairman of the Committee of Concern. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the name of Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis, as chairman of the Committee of Concern, has been largely responsible for rebuilding about 40 churches in the state of Mississippi that have been burned in this state in the last couple of years. I'm sure there's no one present in this meeting that agrees with anybody that would burn churches. This time it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present Father Dr. William P. Davis to give the invocation. Dr. Davis.
May we pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank Thee this morning for this day, for the opportunities which the day brings to us. And we're thankful for the democracy that permits us to assemble here in this convention hall. We pray Thy blessings upon the leadership of the great organizations represented here and throughout our nation, as these men and women meet together to make plans for the building of a better state and a better nation, May they have wisdom divine to guide them, so that in every way the plans will fit the needs of a growing society, of a changing world. We find ourselves baffled because of the opposition, but also encouraged because of the truth and the fact of the truth that leads us forward. We commit this convention into thy care in keeping this day and every day. Bless the homes represented, the communities represented, and the work represented. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Doctor. Certainly appreciate your presence here this morning. We know you've got a busy schedule, but we would like to ask you to put your name in that box back there. You might win that suit. I've been requested by the young lady at the back to advise all of you that have not yet put your name signed up for the suit, please do so. We've had a slight change in our plans on the agenda for today. It will be necessary for us to revise the agenda slightly, and I'd like to advise you what your changes will be this morning before we get into the business session. We have Dan Powell listed as a speaker this afternoon. Dan has called me and advised me that due to the political situation in the state of Tennessee, he won't be able to be here. And I haven't slated anyone in his place. I thought we'd use this time for convention business. We have an awful lot of resolutions to take care of at this convention, and we're going to need all the time possible to take care of that business. So all of you that haven't signed up, please do so. We hope to take up the union label program immediately after lunch, at which time there'll be a drawing for the suit and things like this. And behind that, then we'll go into convention business until 2 p.m., at which time we'll have nomination of officers. We're going to try to use as much of this time as possible. So move the union label program up to 1:30, or thereabout, where we got Mr. Powell. Well, this morning we have another distinguished Mississippian with us, who I'm sure many of you know of. You might not know him personally, but you know of the name, I'm sure. Mr. Harding Carter III, who is co-chairman of the Young Democrat Clubs of Mississippi. I'd like to have a word or two to say about Mr. Carter before I present him to you. One of the major problems in Mississippi centers around the lack of responsible newspapers. About 90% of our problems in this state can be laid at the door of the Hedeman Press right down the street. And our fight to bring organization to the unorganized workers of this state and try to uplift the standard of living, the Hedeman Press and about 99% of the newspapers are part of a conspiracy to defeat union organizing campaigns throughout the state. And if you'll note, we have a table for the press up here. And there haven't been too many of them in. The only time they came in was yesterday to cover Bill Schnitzler's address. Now, we have with us this morning the editor of the best newspaper in the state of Mississippi, the Delta Democrat Times. I subscribe to the paper in order that I can keep up with what goes on in Mississippi, and I'd suggest to you, the rest of you, that it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to also subscribe to this newspaper. See, I'm getting this plug. Right? Now, a lot more I can say about Mr. Carter. He's a Nyman fellow, whatever that's supposed to be. He went up to Harvard as a Nyman scholar, I believe it was, wasn't it? Stay up there for about 6 or 8 months, maybe 9. Came back well educated. So at this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you Harding Carter III. Mr. Carter.
President Ramsey, I learned enough, I think, in that 8 months I was away to know when to quit with a good thing. I should sit down right now after that plug from Claude Ramsey for the paper and for what we are trying to do with it. As a matter of fact, I know that by now, and certainly by the end of this convention, all of you are going to be well tired of sitting and listening, though I notice a few of you aren't here sitting and listening today, which is about normal for a convention. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that by the time this convention is over, you're all going to feel a great deal like that little monkey that some of you have heard me talk about before. This was that sad little monkey who, when all the hydrogen bombs had fallen and the end of the world had come and that great nuclear holocaust had overcome us all, found himself all alone, wandering through one deserted street after another in a burned out city. And as he wandered, he said over and over again, "I'm so hungry, I'm so hungry." And no word came back. And he wandered on some more, saying over and over again, "I'm so hungry, I'm so hungry." And then from behind one burnt out building there came back a soft female monkey voice saying, "Have an apple, have an apple." "What?" said the monkey, "and start that mess all over again." But you are having to sit here and perhaps hear some mess you've heard before. I'm billed this morning as the leader of the Young Democrats of Mississippi, and I'm very happy to be so billed. But I'll tell you, as a young Democrat who's going to give you a frankly partisan Democratic Party speech, which I hope is okay with you and with everyone here, that as this is one young Democrat who in many ways can truthfully say he longs for the good old days. The good old days in Mississippi. That may sound a little bit out of keeping, but the kind of days I'm talking about was not that far distant. When at least when a man stood up and said, "I'm a Democrat in Mississippi," that meant he was a Democrat in Washington as well. I can remember the days of the Depression, very barely, but I can remember very well the record of some of our congressmen from this state during those Depression days. I can remember the record of our congressmen who, as Democrats, walked and talked close to the National Democratic Party. And I wish today we could say the same for the Democrats who represent us in Washington. There were Democrats then, and there was one who I, in many ways, do not like to mention. But there was a Democrat from Mississippi named Theodore Bilbo, who in many ways was a very bad man. But when it came time for Senator Bilbo to vote on New Deal legislation affecting the common man of Mississippi, he voted yes, and yes, and yes. Today, we have no congressman who votes yes when it comes to anything which might help anyone who doesn't already have it made in Mississippi. The people of this state in the Depression wanted Social Security, and most of our congressmen voted for it. They wanted a minimum wage, and at least some of our congressmen voted for it. They wanted unemployment compensation, and some of our congressmen voted for it too. Our people wanted yes votes, and they got it. They got it because all the people in those days knew that we had to have the help of the federal government. But what's the situation today? We still have 5 so-called Democrats, 6 as a matter of fact, 6 Democrats in Congress. But these Democrats fall all over themselves today to try to prove that they don't have anything to do with the Democratic administration in Washington. They don't have anything to do with Democratic programs. They don't have anything to do with what most of the people in their state want, if they could only find the voice to say it for them. They fall all over themselves trying to prove they're not Democrats, but they needn't bother to do that because we all know they're not. We can look at their voting records and see the record speak for itself. Call them out. Minimum wage legislation, Medicare, aid to education. The roll goes on and on and on. And on each one of the roll calls, each Democrat from Mississippi votes no. Or let's think about our Democrats here in the legislature in Jackson. What kind of Democrat is it in this country who votes to knock taxes off the top wage earners of the state and to increase them on the majority of people who have a hard enough time as it is making enough money to make ends meet? What kind of Democrats do we find who would vote for more and more exemptions from those who need them less on taxation, even while failing to provide the basic services which any state must have if its people are to claim a place in 20th century America? It's not that Mississippi does not need federal aid. It is not that Mississippi today is not dependent on the very programs that our congressmen vote against. I live in Greenville, Mississippi. I live under a federal levy. I drive every day on federally financed roads inside the city limits and federally financed highways outside it. We've got a new library that's paid for 2/3 by federal money. I go by federally subsidized cotton rows every day on my way to work. My children get federally subsidized school lunches. Our airport is a federal project, and I haven't even begun to touch the many ways in which federal programs are affecting my hometown and yours. Or the state level. Federal contracts at Ingalls Shipbuilding, the Saturn Test Site, VA hospitals, Hill-Burton hospitals all over this state, Veterans Administration hospitals. The list again goes on and on and on. And I can't even begin to touch half of them. And these are old programs. These were programs which were designed to meet old needs, and every day and every month we're discovering that there are new programs needed, that there are new kinds of ways that the federal and state and local governments can cooperate, and our Democrats from Mississippi vote no. The Democratic Party nationally has consistently, as it did in the 1930s when all Mississippi was eager to claim it, has consistently offered the kind of programs which this state needs if we are ever to see ourselves come off the bottom rung of 50 rungs in the United States of America, economically, politically, socially. But our so-called Democrats in Congress consistently say, we know our people don't want this. And I wonder what people they're talking about. The people who already have it made? The people who got theirs during the 30s? The people who say no more of any programs for anybody else, but some more for those programs that I'm getting right now? I know that the farmers need help. I know in many ways that industry needs help. But I think there are a lot of other people in this state who need it too. I think there are a lot of other programs in this state that need it too. And I'd like to see one time somebody elected as a Democrat saying, yes, we do need it. Well, I've just sort of reeled off for everybody what everybody knows anyway. This is nothing new to any of you. So what do we do about it? Before I go any further, I'd like to make a little bow in the direction of an organization which maybe some of you will be surprised to hear me saying something good about. the state Republican Party. Those people with whom I disagree almost basically on every issue of ideology and politics have at least taken an honest, forthright, and consistent stand with no pretenses about it. And they have organized on an honest, consistent basis. We are conservatives, they say. We are against federal assistance. We are against AIDS education. This is what our party stands for, and this is what we're trying to build. If you elect us, they say, there'll be no nonsense about anything else like social welfare or improved federal services. We're against them, and we encourage everybody who is against them to join us. And this is a wonderful thing for Mississippi, because at last many Mississippi conservatives who have called themselves Democrats all these years are flocking to join this new party, which is holding up one banner and making no pretense about being half Democrat, half Republican, and if it's possible, half some third brand X, which no one can possibly understand. And this is all good. After all, what's the point of electing a man to office who calls himself a Democrat when the minute he gets in there, he isn't going to do anything but work with Republicans anyway? I, for one, would rather elect a Republican each and every term. But this isn't much choice for many of us. It isn't much choice for those of us who don't want to have to choose between a Mississippi or states' rights or whatever other kind of Democrat they want to call themselves, between this and a republic. This isn't much choice for us who believe that there ought to be really a second voice in Mississippi, a real second voice. I'll tell you a secret. The people who feel there ought to be that second voice in Mississippi, who feel that there ought to be something besides the Republican parties and their Democratic allies, those people are in the majority in Mississippi today. We think we're not. We see ourselves defeated on many occasions. But the people who want what a real Democratic Party has to offer are in the majority. There are more of us who believe that the aged in Mississippi should not have to suffer needlessly and long because no one cares. There are more of us in Mississippi who believes that a man ought to get a decent wage and a decent education for his children, no matter what his standing in life. There are more of us in Mississippi today who believe that only as all the people benefit can the state truly progress. Why is it then, if there are more of us, and there are, and we've proved it before, we proved it in the 30s, why is it, if there are more of us like this, why is it that we seem to be unable to get anywhere? I'll tell you why. What has kept this from ever coming out, what has kept us from moving together, is that our leaders in this state have played us for suckers. They've played us for suckers for the last 100 years, and if they have their way, they'll play us for suckers for the next 100 years. They wave a lot of old flags, and they're flags that mean something to me. I think they're something that means something to most of you. They remind us of the lost cause of the Civil War. Well, I lost a great-grandfather at Shiloh, and my great-grandmother lost her farm in Louisiana because he was a Confederate officer. But I'm not sitting here worrying about that 100 years after the fact. My grandfather believed that James K. Vardaman was the greatest man that Mississippi ever produced. And he fought for him and he bled for him 50 years ago. But that was 50 years ago. When my grandfather died 10 years ago, he wasn't so sure anymore that James K. Vardaman had been the best thing that ever happened to Mississippi. And today, the man who desecrates the flag of at least a noble effort 100 years ago, the man who wraps that mantle around himself, once governor and seeking again to be governor, that man, Ross Barnett, can at the same time that he's playing this same sucker deal with us just a few short years ago, can destroy a great university even while he's wheeling and dealing behind closed doors and over long-distance telephone to make sure that somebody may die, somebody may be hurt, but it won't be Ross Barnett. For all I know, Ross not only thinks he's going to be the next governor, he probably still thinks he's got great groundswell support for president in 1968. I think it's time we quit letting men like this, the demagogues and the front men for the status quo boys, make suckers out of us. The kind of Mississippi we want, the kind of Mississippi in which any man can get a decent education, a decent job and income, and find a decent place to live. A Mississippi in which no man has to fear old age or a long sickness. A Mississippi in which the government shows itself truly concerned about the lot of all its people, and not just a handful of big mules here or there or everywhere. This is the kind of Mississippi that we can get. We, the majority in Mississippi, can get if we're willing to work together for it. Thanks to the Republicans, thanks to the bankruptcy of the so-called Mississippi Democrats, there's a party out there in Mississippi just waiting for somebody to come in and work with and do something with it. There's a party out there which offers a home to this majority in Mississippi, which knows which side of the coin is up. And it's going to be a problem. It isn't going to be easy. In seizing that party, we're going to have to fight, on the one hand, the black power boys, and on the other hand, the white Mau Mau, the Triple K, those specialists in arson and murder and union busting and union beating. But we can do it, because there's still more of us than there are of anybody else. It's not an easy road. It's not going to be a popular road. But I don't have to tell any of you in labor that popularity and the right thing don't always go hand in hand. We have a chance. The Republicans, after all, showed us that, as a matter of fact, our grandfathers don't turn over in their grave just because something new is added to the political scene. Remember the old saying? There'll never be a Republican Party in Mississippi because we've always voted Democratic. And 10 years ago, a little handful of bright young men, very conservative, decided there was going to be a Republican Party in Mississippi. And everybody laughed. 10 years later, they've got a congressman, they've got unnumbered local officials, they've got a couple of legislators, and they're making a bid across the board for political power in Mississippi, in a state in which everybody said, I can't vote Republican because my granddaddy would turn over in his grave. Well, maybe our granddaddies might turn over in their grave at some of the things we're talking about today. And their great-granddaddies probably turned over in their grave at some of the things they did, and that's just the way the world is. Because situations change, times change, responses to them change. Now, how are we going to do it? It means each of us on the local level have got to get out and start playing an active public role in politics instead of just every 4 years cussing the people who do it. At the precinct level, at the county level, at the state level. If you want a blueprint for it, from some people you never would have thought would get their fingers dirty in politics, go out and look at what the Republicans have done in Mississippi today. It means that we're going to have to start organizing behind decent candidates and offering decent candidates instead of always saying there's no way for a decent man to get elected, so let's take the second best choice. We'll always get second best as long as that's our attitude. And finally, it means we've got to quit letting every jackleg demagogue who comes down the pike divide us, confuse us, wave some old banners and sell us out right down the river as they've been doing for the last 100 years. If we do this, if we'll get together, if we'll work, there's a real chance in the near future for a true Democratic Party in Mississippi, with true Democrats in Jackson and with true Democrats in Washington. If we don't, this is one young Democrat right here who's going to be mighty long in the tooth before he ever sees the Republicans and what Claude Ramsey calls the Republicrats ever go out of office in Mississippi. To tell the truth, I don't think that Mississippi, or most of us, can afford to wait that long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. I think probably you got a lot of agreement in this convention with what you said. I couldn't agree with anyone anymore. Remarks just made by a speaker. We do appreciate the fact you was able to come over and be with us, Heidi. We'd like to invite you to hang around for a while if you like, and participate in our affairs as long as you can. Maybe we might get a little press coverage out of it. You'd be interested to know that in my remarks yesterday that I said just about what you said this morning. Yes, here, come on up, okay. Well, we're privileged this morning to have another distinguished Mississippian with us. And he is not one of these people that Heidi was talking about. We do have in the state of Mississippi a few state officials that are doing an excellent job in their positions. Mr. Tubb happens to be one of those individuals. My privilege as president of this organization to work very closely with the State Superintendent of Education's office. That's one department that we have in the state that consults with organized labor. We have a representative on an advisory committee, vocational training committee, that he set up, along with some other groups. He's doing an excellent job and has for years and years in the state of Mississippi, and trying to do something to better public education throughout our state. He's got a tough job. It's a real tough one. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you this morning Jack Tubb, the State Superintendent of Education. Mr. Tubb.
Mr. Ramsey and members of the fine organizations represented here today. I sincerely appreciate the invitation from your president, Mr. Ramsey, that made it possible for me to be here at this time. It has been my pleasure on several occasions to have had the opportunity of addressing members of this organization in the years gone by. I believe that something happened last year that I did not get to be with you, but I'm certainly glad to be here today. And I want to thank all of you for giving me the opportunity to be here, and I want to assure you that your kindnesses and your courtesies certainly have not gone unnoticed by me. I have been told by certain certain educators in the state that they could always be counted on labor in the development of their local school programs. And I want to say to you today that I have found that to be true with those that I have had the opportunity of working with here, and as Mr. Ramsey has told you, we have done what we could with all the people of Mississippi in building a program that would mean the most to our boys and girls in this state, your boys and girls. Inasmuch as I am in the field of education, I'm sure that you would expect me to talk on certain phases of it that might be of interest to you today. Sometimes I feel that the rank and file of the people of Mississippi do not know as much about the program of education as they should. And it is necessary for our people to have information concerning that which deals more directly with your children than any other subject matter field. We perhaps do not realize this, and we may not realize the influence that education has upon the life of a nation. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, DeWitt Clinton, Woodrow Wilson, and other great personalities of history have attested to the value of education, stating that if we are to preserve our democratic customs and our form of government, largely it must be done through a program of education and the influence that that education would have upon the lives of our people. Our people in Mississippi have realized through the years the necessity of a good educational program. When our Constitution fathers met in 1817, they said this: religion, morality, and knowledge being essential to good government, the preservation of liberty and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall be forever encouraged in this state. And that long ago, our forefathers realized the necessity of an education for what? In order to have good government, in order to preserve the liberties that men and women are entitled to, and to promote those things that would be for the happiness of mankind. I'm trying to make a case, and certainly a case is not hard to make for education in a democratic society. In 1829, 4 years before our second Constitution was adopted in 1832, a labor party in New York City recommended a school system, and I want you to listen to this, a school system that shall unite under the same roof the children of the poor man and the rich, the widow's charge and the orphan, where the road to distinction shall be superior industry, virtue, and requirements without reference to descent. That's been spoken 134 years ago, yet it is as true today as it was in that long ago. That education should find its way to every child, regardless of what kind of a home he may have to live in. That was at a time in our nation's history when parents had to declare themselves paupers in order to get their children into free schools. The historian Coverley, who has written much about education of the past, said the friends of free schools were at first commonly regarded as fanatics, dangerous to the state. The idea of providing free education for all out of public taxation was denounced as socialistic and destructive of individual initiative. That doesn't have too much of a sound at the present time. I remember in my boyhood when when bond issues were trying to be voted, that someone had said, this person over here is a bachelor, although he might have had a store that he was selling $100,000 worth of merchandise a year, then why should he have to pay tax? He has no children. But every living soul in every community has a responsibility to every other person in that community, because he couldn't be there unless he had those people who have children and their children were not living. Albert Gallatin Brown, one of the great governors of our state, perhaps one who spoke for education more than any other, in 1846 he said, "The benefits of education are not priceless. If we are to enjoy the blessings of education and transmit its fruits to our posterity, we must expect to pay for them." I say to you today that if we are to have a great program of education, if we are to have a program that will reach the rank and file of the people of Mississippi and of America, we must expect to pay for it. We cannot buy it at a bargain either, because we've got to pay the price. What he said in that day long ago is as true today as it was when he uttered it. If we are to meet competition from the nations of the world, it will be necessary to increase expenditures for education from year to year. There is no investment greater than education. The people of the world are recognizing that also. And those nations that are trying to triumph at the present time, those nations that are trying to run roughshod over our democratic way of life and our democratic ideals, have found and are finding that the greatest weapon they can have will be an educated citizenry. A few years ago, when Sputnik was launched by the Russian people, it was perhaps the greatest event in changing the attitude of our people toward education. It taught our people at that time, and especially our congressional leaders, that if we are to hold our place with the nations of the world, that we could not waste any time in developing a great program of education. Our schools, if something were not done at that time, would become antiquated as the little red schoolhouse as we think of today. In 1958, immediately after the Russians had launched Sputnik, the Congress of the United States passed what is known as the National Defense Education Act of 1958. They knew something had to be done. Congress hereby finds and declares that the security of the nation requires the fullest development of the mental resources and technical skills of its young men and women. The present emergency demands that additional and more adequate educational opportunities be made available. The defense of this nation, and listen, depends upon the mastery of modern techniques developed from complex scientific principles. It depends as well upon the discovery and the development of new principles, new techniques, and new knowledge. That was 8 years ago. Those words were given. The truth of the statement of Congress that a broader and more definite program of education in the field of science, mathematics, research, and modern foreign languages is needed. That cannot be denied. They left out a few things that many of us at that time wanted, especially those in the field of education, and those subject matters have recently been put under this act as an amendment. Reading, English, history and political science, economics, and geography have been added. This should have been done in 1958, because any person in this country ought to be able to speak intelligently the English language. He ought to know something of the history of his country. Our students today who are in high school and college, most of them will see other nations of the earth during their lifetime. Many of them will be in government positions that will carry them to all sections of the world. Our educational program that we will give to them will determine their efficiency as they meet other peoples of other nations. And the image of our nation, to a great extent, will be determined by how these young people present themselves throughout the nations of the world. Mississippi, through state, local, and federal funds, is meeting her obligations in a great measure for the children and adults in the field of education. I do not say fully. I said in a great measure. And I am influenced by that to an extent by what has been done recently in the field of education. We predict that in the biennium beginning July the 1st, 1966, that's this month, and ending June the 30th, 1968, that between $332 and $333 million, which is 1/3 of $1 billion, will be spent through the State Department of Education. I'm not giving the statistics for the senior colleges of Mississippi, and there are other phases of education that perhaps I have not mentioned here. I'm just speaking about what will be channeled through the State Department of Education during this biennium, 1966 to June the 30th, 1968. Of course, events in the future might change this amount for an increase or a decrease. If there is no great upheaval in the governance of the world, it is my prediction that within the next 5 years, the State Department of Education will be operating under a $500,000 budget, $500 million budget. We spoke in thousands, and when we got into millions, and now we're getting into billions, and yet we don't have enough at the present time. Yes, within the next 5 years, the State Department of Education will be operating perhaps under a $500 million. Could be more, determined by what may happen. It is no easy task to administer these various funds. And when I mean of various funds that we have to cope with every day under many technical rules and regulations. The National Defense Educational Act for 66 and 68 should give us $2,232,000. That's for science, mathematics, modern foreign language, history, geography, and the political science. We have budgeted for the next biennium $28,024,760 for vocational education. You people are definitely interested in that. For many years, it was hard to get our people interested in a program of vocational technical education, teaching people to make a living by the use of their hands to an extent, certainly with a trained mind also. And it was only just the last 3 or 4 years, or since 1958, that our people have become aroused in this field. And we are now working with our high schools and with our junior colleges in setting up vocational technical training programs. We're being able to get some of the finest equipment that can be purchased. We are on the road, I hope, through your interest and through the cooperation of the people back out in the hinterlands of Mississippi, to carry forward this program in the finest way that it can be carried along. Vocational rehabilitation is in our department, and I shall talk more about that in just a few minutes. We'll have over $8.5 million in that. Crippled Children's Service, $2 million. Title I of the ESEA, or Public Law 8910, which is for disadvantaged youth or for youth from disadvantaged families. For the next 2 years, we have been set up on a $34 million budget this year. We'd hope that it would be that next year or more. We ought to get about $68 million in that field there. And that goes to practically all of the youth. They mentioned the disadvantage, but if there is those that have more advantage in the communities where these programs operate, then they have the opportunity to participate there too, even though a child might be the son or daughter of a millionaire. Under Title II of the Public Law 8910, that's the one in which we feature library services to the community. We should get $2,400,000. Title 2B of ESEA, that is adult education program. We hope to spend during the next 2 years approximately $1 million, between $900,000 and $1 million. Under Title V, which is strengthening the State Department of Education and giving us the personnel to an extent in order to carry forward these programs, be $452,000. The Civil Defense Adult Education Unit coming through the State Department of Education should amount to approximately $1 million. We should spend $55,000 for health service in one branch of our department. State Department of Education, $650,000, and that's all it takes to operate these programs from the regular State Department of Education. $22 million for school lunch and for the commodities and for the money that will go with it. We think that is a great item in a program. It's something that we couldn't do without at the present time. The minimum educational program is $183 million. Nearly $184 million for 1966 and 68. Driver education, $2 million, and junior colleges, $10 million. I just give you those figures that they may have some significance to you as we work forward to a plan that will reach 610,000 students, students in the state of Mississippi. If we are to meet, and I want to stress this very much, if we are to meet competition from the nations of the earth, it will be necessary to increase expenditures for education from year to year. It isn't static. Our program of education and research in this, the greatest country on earth, must be second to none throughout the entire world. I say that to you in all sincerity because I know that if our nation is to endure and to meet its responsibilities not only to the people of this country but to the peoples of the world, we've got to meet this problem of education of our youth. It is our belief, and I have said this on many occasions for the last 21 years that I have been the state superintendent of the state of Mississippi, can be found in the records of this state, in the reports to the legislature from time to time, that it is our belief that every child in Mississippi, regardless of race, creed, color, physical, mental, or emotional conditions, should have reasonable opportunities to advance educationally as far as the capacity of the individual will meet. In other words, if we are to be strong, our strength will be determined according to the weakness of every child that does not get an opportunity to get a good comprehensive education. And that is every child with no exception, because we are all Americans and we must continue to be strong by making our citizens strong. By every child, I mean those who are mentally and physically handicapped. I mean those with speech defects, emotionally disturbed, out there in the homes, in the cities, and in the country, young men and women that will never have an opportunity in life unless somebody shows an interest in them and makes it possible for those defects to be cured or to certainly improvements to be made. Yes, sir, it's our responsibility, your responsibility out there to find those young people and see that they get the help that they need in reaching their fullest capacity. We've been electing our young people, and I mean young people now. We've been saying that 6 years of age, the child is eligible to go to school, and all of his expenses should be paid in a school. But many of us perhaps have neglected to think about those youngsters below the age of 6 years. 3 years of age, and you will see within the next few years that the public schools will be promoting a program of education for the children 3 years of age. Through scientific research and through experimentations, it has been found that a child 2 years of age can learn to read and write. Those years from 3 to 6 are the greatest formative years in the age of a child, and he must be given some opportunity. You can see the homes of this country right over the larger cities, and you will find that there are maids going to the homes of more fortunate people, staying there all day, not able to contribute too much to them, finding the children running around over the country or over the cities, not getting an education. What I'm saying to you today, that we must give to those young people an organized program of education, because those 3 formative years will count in their lives. And you will see that that will be done. It's being done now in some of the states. It's going to be done in all of the states within the next few years. All right, in closing, I want to say this to you, that I have recited to you at great length and somewhat in detail a profound influence of the public schools upon the total life of this country. The influence is so far-reaching that the people of America must guard the public schools as their greatest possessions. No vested interest and no people sponsoring false ideologies should ever be allowed to get control of the public schools so as to use them for their own selfish gains. The public schools and the institutions of higher learning must always be free to teach the truth and facts concerning all issues. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you this morning and assuring you of my cooperation in the future in developing for our children in the state of Mississippi the best educational programs that is possible for a liberty-loving people to develop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Tubb, for that magnificent address.
Glad to have you stay with us as long as you like.
But he can make an oath for you. Got this wire just a few minutes ago. I'd like to read it to you. Addressed to myself as president of the organization. Best wishes for a most successful convention. I plan to be with you. However, my convention on 5th, 6th, and 7th prohibits me from being with you. Sincerely, Sinway Young, President of South Carolina Labor Council. We, of course, invited the presidents of most all of the councils to come over and be with us. This time, we've got a few guests I'd like to introduce. I see Mrs. Knight and her lovely young daughter with us this morning. Would you please stand up? Take a bow. And have your look. I've noticed that we've got a few other international reps and a few staff people of the AFL-CIO that's come in this morning. I see Cy Dugas in the back with IBEW. Stand up, sorry. Let them see what you look like. I did see Dixon Powell with that shiny top of his in here. Where is he still here? Was in for a little while anyhow. Brother Holt's on the staff of the AFL-CIO in the back corner back there. Glad to have you with us. We have a number of other guests. I know brothers here this morning and I might possibly overlook before it's over, but we're glad to have all that here. We want you to know that. The local people, the local union members and all that. Now we have a particular group of people here this morning that I want to introduce to you. We have a group sitting up here on the front row. Been walking a picket line. I introduced one young man to you yesterday, but we've got a couple more of those picket walkers in here this morning. Come over to visit with us. Left the picket line. Stand up and let's see who you look like. Just one. Just one. I thought we had two. Now, we've got a rather large delegation of people here that's the first time to be at this convention. I'm going to introduce them to you because I think you need to realize that we have been making progress in the field of organizing. I've asked the Secretary to make me up a list of those local unions that were chartered over the last 2 years since our last convention. We've got Chemical Workers 772 from Greenville. Would you please stand? The delegates from my local, please stand. Chemical Workers 774 also from Greenville. ACWA and from Peehatchee, would you please stand? URW 759 from Corinth, would you please stand? Steelworkers Local 1543 from Greenville, Clayton Walsh. I'd say that this local union had to hit the bricks to get a contract. Represents the Atkins Salt plant up at Greenville. These boys had a real tough go of it in organizing and in getting a contract, but they got the job done. And we have another large group here, I guess they're still here, at least I hope they are, that's been chartered and organized and got under contract since our last convention. The MPI group, Local 3031, the Carpenters Local 3031 here in Jackson. You'll please stand. So you don't have as large a delegation as you did yesterday. I should have introduced you yesterday when I got them all. Well, we are happy to have you folks with us here, and we hope that you will find this convention worthwhile. Now, let me see if I can get one or two of the committees ready to report. Is the Constitution and Bylaws Committee ready to report resolution number 2? Brother Schaefer in the hall. Oh, yeah, you ready? Up here, good. Are you ready to go? Huh? You're not ready to go with it? You want, well, we're going to take up some resolutions now and get something rid of some of this business. All right. Brother Schaefer wants to make an announcement.
I'd like to meet the Bylaws and Constitution Committee in Parlor A.
It is available at the time. Well, I know what to do. Yeah. Not you get the meeting.
A meeting. Thank you.
I know that some of the committee chairmen are ready to report. Would you please come up to the rostrum? We've got an awful lot of business to take care of. We're going to make up a minute count if we get through time. You've got out fairly early tomorrow. Waiting for the committee chairman to come up. I want to explain something to you. I understand that there's been some delegates concerned about resolution number 2, which is a constitutional amendment, which brings our Constitution and bylaws in conformity with the rules and regulations of the AFL-CIO. This is the rules and regulations adopted by the AFL-CIO. The Mississippi AFL-CIO is chartered by the national organization, and we have to, as a matter of fact, comply with those rules and regulations. And resolution number 2, which changes our Constitution, is designed to bring it into conformity with the rules and regulations. Now, the resolution that you have there before you that you'll be considering, the one that the committee is going to consider now, in effect what it does is to eliminate secret ballot elections in the election of officers. This is what it really does. Now, we've had a discussion with Mr. Schnitzler, the Secretary of Treasury of the organization. He met with our board yesterday, and we made this inquiry of him as to why this was done, and reviewed with him how we propose to handle the election of officers. And this is what he advised us, that the reason that the Executive Council adopted this rule was that this was a delegate body voting their membership. Therefore, they should vote in an open election. They had to, according to the rules and regulations of the AFL-CIO, that they were representing people. Therefore, they felt that the secret ballot part of it had to be eliminated and get everybody in the same line, so to speak. Now, I'd like to read to you that rule so you might better understand what it's all about. A roll call on elections may be conducted orally, or it may be conducted by written or printed ballots where deemed desirable to expedite the holding of the election, provided each ballot clearly shows the name, organization, and number of votes of the delegate cast in the ballot. Such ballot shall become part of the records of the central body and shall be preserved and available for examination by any delegate or officer of an affiliated organization for a period of not less than 6 months. That's the rule that prompted that resolution. Now, Mr. Schnitzler advised us yesterday that in conducting our elections, that we can conduct them just as we have in the past, with a printed ballot, and that the tellers of the election, all they'd have to do then would be to put the number of votes on the ballot, as they have already, the name of the delegate, and the local union he represented. This will be the only change from what we've been doing. Well, I see several of the committee chairmen up here. Brother Johnson, you ready to report? Okay, I'm going to call on Brother Johnson. See, you are with the Education Committee. Brother Johnson, Chairman of the Education Committee.
We have 4 resolutions that the committee acted on for your approval or disapproval. If you look in your kit, get resolution number 21. Number 21, United Fundraising. Whereas the Mississippi AFL has long acknowledged the importance of the contribution of mankind made by the volunteer health and welfare and recreation agencies, we recognize that many services rendered are possible only because volunteers who give up their time, talent, and finances support. And whereas in recognition of the importance of volunteer agencies, Mississippi AFL-CIO members and officers have given generously of their time and energy in support of the volunteer health, welfare, and recreation service. We are rightfully proud of the record which our members have established through the community service activity. And whereas we of the Mississippi AFL-CIO fully recognize the responsibility put upon each of and every member of our union to exert great efforts and to do an even greater job in the area of united and fundraising. And whereas we further recognize that there is great danger that the needs may be neglected as a result of conflicts and policy between private and public agencies, we see the necessity of government and volunteer agencies cooperating in the united effort to coordinate their good works in this field so that neither energies nor dollars are wasted in duplicating. And whereas we fully believe in the need and work of the volunteer health, welfare, and recreation agencies, and recognize that to the extent that their services are available to all people they serve and the members of organized labor and their families, now therefore be it resolved that the third Biannual Convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO reaffirm its policy in support of the federated fundraising, such as the United Givers through its community service activities and through the local AFL-CIO central body and council. And be it further resolved that Mississippi AFL-CIO will continue to advocate the extension of the democratic process in which the administration of the United Fund through broad-based community representation of their policy-making boards and committees, through a budget process which allocates funds on the basis of relative need and through support of national agencies and a fair share of basis. And be it finally resolved that the Mississippi AFL-CIO offers its services to bring about coordination of the efforts of municipal, state, and federal government agencies and the volunteer agencies, each of which provide distinct and irreplaceable function in man's challenge to serve man. Respectfully submitted by CWA Local 3511. The committee requests that this motion be adopted.
You heard the committee's report, the motion to adopt resolution number 21. Do we have any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion signify it by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. You have more to go. Mr. Johnson.
Would you get resolution number 22, invasion of privacy? Invasion of privacy. Whereas Big Brother is not only watching, he is listening too. Finding evidence of widespread wiretapping has been gathered by the Congressional Committee. Senator Edward B. Long has charged that the effects of the widespread use of wiretapping, eavesdropping, is important to create an atmosphere of fear on the part of our citizens. Whereas we care about seeing such committee of administrative practice and procedure, Senator Long has probed deeply into the invasion of privacy which has become a commonplace, a threat to democratic principles and individual privacy. Whereas during the course of hearing, Senator Long has said, we discovered that many people, both in our government, resort to tapping of telephone for the purpose of obtaining information. Sometimes the phone taps are used for industrial espionage purposes. And more often than not, our policies and federal agencies resort to eavesdropping, wiretapping, and criminal and national security cases. And whereas Senator Long and others have pointed out the interpretation placed on our current legislation by the Justice Department to give little or no practical protection against wiretapping, and whereas since many of our members working in the telephone industry where wiretapping techniques are readily at hand, the communication workers of work has complete and historic awareness of this threat posed by the ease with which this invasion of privacy can be accomplished. And whereas also Mississippi AFL-CIO members often are subjected to surveillance by means of monitoring devices which are now available to organizations outside the telephone industry. And our own members occasionally have been approached by unscrupulous operators who have sought skilled technicians to tap the phones of telephone company subscribers, whereas it is well over a year since CWA President President Byrne's Senate testimony on wiretapping the national team. Since that time, major magazines, frequent newspaper features, and a national television document has highlighted this problem. Nevertheless, corrective action has been slight and spontaneous. Whereas the moral fabric of American society is being steadily corrupted by the temptation created by wiretapping and other snooping devices that are both simple in application and sophisticated in effect, the time has come to call a halt. Now therefore be it resolved that the Third Convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO oppose the spreading use of wiretapping and eavesdropping equipment by government and industry, and support the effect of those congressional leaders who advocate strong legislation to license, to manufacture, regulate the sale, and prohibit the indiscriminate use of eavesdropping and wiretapping equipment. Be it further resolved that we urge the enactment of legislation prohibiting the use of monitoring equipment in connection with the employer-employee relation. Effective committee by CWA Local 3511. The committee approves that we adopt this motion.
Read the committee's report to adopt resolution number 22. We have any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. At this time, I'm going to turn the chair over to Vice President Taylor. I understand the Legislative Committee needs my presence. Mr. Taylor? Continue on.
Mr. Johnson will continue with his report. Resolution number 25, would you get that out of your pack, please? Whereas consumers spend a substantial portion of their income in the purchase of food and household products, and whereas their income is eroded away unnecessary when they are able to compare prices easily in order to get the most out of what they buy. And whereas President Johnson has called for legislation that will provide craft packaging and labeling to ensure the shopper against deceptive and limited confusion, and to eliminate questionable practice. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mississippi AFL-CIO will endorse the Senate-passed bill, SB 985, and urge favorable action on this bill by the House of Representatives Committee on Interstate and Foreign Commerce. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the chairman or members of the Committee of Interstate and Foreign Commerce and to Senator Hart. Respectively submitted by Executive Board of AFL-CIO. The committee recommends this for your action.
You heard the motion to adopt resolution number 25, Truth in Packaging. All in favor of the motion, will you signify it by saying aye? Opposition? None. Motion is carried.
Resolution number 26, Truth in Lending. Number 26. Lending. Whereas over 1/5 of the average family income in the United States is paid out for installment and mortgage debts, and whereas the consumer has the right to adequate and easy understanding information on what they are going to pay when they use credit, and whereas testimony before the Senate Banking Subcommittee and other reports show widespread concealment of high interest charges on customer credit through misleading methods of state financial costs. reinstating financial costs. And whereas President Johnson has called for truth in lending legislation that will require lenders to state the full cost of credit, simple and clear, and to state it before any credit contract is signed. Now therefore be it resolved that the Mississippi AFL-CIO commends Senator Douglas for his consistent efforts to bring to light the need for such legislation. Yet further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the President of the United States, to Senator Douglas, and to members of the Senate Banking and Credit Committee. Respected submitted to the Executive Board AFL-CIO. Committee moves that this resolution be adopted.
You heard the motion to adopt resolution number 26, truth in lending. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the usual voting sign by saying aye. The opposition? There is none, and so ordered. Next we have Brother E.V. Edwards, Chairman of the Officers' Report. Brother Edwards.
Will you open your kits and get the report of the officers that you have in your kit? It's a large sheet. Did I find it? The officers' report. This committee consists of Mr. G.R. Sossaman and Mr. C.M. Bowman. We're not going to take time this morning to read the complete officers' report in this convention. But we urge that each local chairman of each local union and each president of each central body make a special effort to take this report back home with you, and it'll probably take you about 10 minutes of your next local or central labor union body to take this report and read it to your membership. We feel that it will answer a great many questions that you may have asked you in regard to what is the Mississippi AFL-CIO, who are the officers, and what they're doing. We feel that the committee, in discussion this morning, feels that the officers of the Mississippi AFL-CIO, the Executive Committee, and the Executive Board, in the past session of 2 years, has answered well to the people who elected them to office. We feel that great advancement has taken place in the field of organized labor in the state of Mississippi in the past 2 years. We feel that even though we are just now scratching the surface, there's much to be accomplished in the future. So we, as a committee, would like to endorse the operation of the officers and the Executive Board for their activity and their work in the past 2 years.
and that was a unanimous decision of the convention. So we would ask you to receive this officer's report and be with it, be responsible for taking it back home to your people so that your membership can know what your state body has been doing for the past 2 years. Thank you. Brother Edward offers a motion that the report be accepted. Is there any discussion? If not, all who favor the motion, let be known by saying aye. The opposition by the same sign. The motion is carried and is so ordered. Do we have any other committees that are ready to report? That they are not ready. I'm not sure what Claude has in mind for the continuation of the session. While Tom's looking for the agenda, I wonder if there should be any announcements that any of the chairmen of the committee would like to make at this time. Talking to Brother Knight, seems like that we may be a little bit ahead of schedule, maybe have a little spare time on our hands. We're thinking in terms that we might just adjourn for the lunch hour, give an opportunity for the people who desire to have a caucus or the committees that may be needing to meet. What is your pleasure on that particular point? Would you like to adjourn and come back at the scheduled time? I believe that would be with your unanimous consent, so we will say that we are adjourned until the time on the agenda in which we will meet back for the afternoon session. Thank you very much.
Convention Hall, please.
Sarah Bloom in the house? Would you tell her to get her union labor committee and bring them up? James? I want you to know you got a recess you shouldn't have had. If I'd have been here, you would have got all 30 minutes of it. Huh? We want that. Will the delegates please be seated, please? Convention will come to order. As I advised you this morning, it's become necessary to revise the agenda on the afternoon program. We will take up the union label program at this time. Prior to that, we want to ask the chairman of the Union Label and Service Committee to give its report. So at this time, I present to you the chairman of the Union Label and Service Committee, Brother Jackson. Brother Jackson.
Thank you, Claude. Would all the delegates please get resolution number 6 out of your kits? Resolution number 6 is the union labor resolution. The printed form that's in your kit was revised slightly by the executive board in our meeting on Sunday. We didn't change the meaning of it, but we changed a couple of words and added identifying the organization. I'd like to read this resolution as the board adopted it on Sunday, and you may have to add in a couple of words, but I'll stop and give you a change so that you understand what the changes are. It says, whereas a union label, union button, union card, or union service is the most important weapon in the labor movement's arsenal in the unremitting efforts to improve the working conditions of union members. And whereas, while the forces of reaction may try to thwart the efforts of workers to obtain a union of their own choosing, they cannot prevent 16 million union members, their families and friends from using their power as consumers to patronize those products and services which are brought about by decent union conditions. Now therefore be it resolved that this, the third biannual convention, and here you would add, of Mississippi AFL-CIO, go on record favoring the continued full support. You would strike out the word to, add a D on continue, and strike out the, and add favoring the. Full support of Mississippi AFL-CIO for union label, union card, union button, and union service education of union members and of the general public as well. Be it finally resolved that all members of organized labor be asked to expand their efforts in behalf of the union label, union card, union button, or union service in order to protect our hard-won gains. Mr. Chairman, the committee moved the adoption of this resolution as changed.
You've heard the committee's report on the motion to adopt the resolution as corrected by the board meeting. We have any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Jackson, we're going to try to get his report in its entirety if we can.
At this time, I'd like to call on the secretary of our committee, Mr. Nolly Bird from Pascagoula, to read resolution number 12.
Resolution number 12 reads, support of Kingsport Press strikes. Whereas the strike against the Kingsport Press Incorporated of Kingsport, Tennessee by members of 5 AFL-CIO unions is now more than 3 years old. And whereas this company has continued to operate with scabs and strike breakers under unfair economic and social conditions. And whereas the principal products of this unfair employer are school textbooks and encyclopedia which are sold by major book publishers to our public and private school systems all over the nation. And whereas many of these books are purchased by public school boards with tax money, contributed in large part by union members, and children of union members are required to use such books. And whereas the 1965 AFL-CIO Convention recognized that this is a dispute which affected every union member and urged maximum support of a program to boycott books being produced at Kingsport Press. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this third biennial convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO urge all affiliates to give every assistance to local AFL-CIO central bodies in publicizing this strike and in programs which appeal to boards of education to cease using tax money to buy books produced at the Kingsport Press. There is one change that we want to make, I believe. That reads productive. And we just leave out the letter T and make the word produced at the Kingsport Press. And be it further resolved that each delegate urge every member of their union to refrain from purchasing World's Book Encyclopedia or its annual supplements, or the Childcraft series published by Field Enterprises of Educational Corporation, which are printed and bound by scabs and strike breakers at Kingsport Press. Be it finally resolved that all publishers who are known to be customers of Kingsport Press shall be advised by a letter of this convention action and be furnished a copy of this resolution. Mr. Chairman, the committee recommends the passage of this resolution.
You've heard the committee's report to adopt resolution number 12. Do we have any discussion?
Stanley from Communications Workers of America. I'd like to wholeheartedly endorse this resolution. I'd like to point out to the delegates in the Assembly here that there seems to be a conspiracy, particularly in Mississippi, between the educators, that's the secondary school teachers, and the salesmen for World Book, Encyclopedia, and Childcraft. I think there's a way that we can approach this through the Parents and Teachers Association, because many of the salesmen of World Book and Childcraft are former teachers or teachers supplementing their meager income, and the teachers in the grade schools, and particularly in the elementary schools, are giving the children research work primarily designed that it can be found best in World Book rather than in some of the other prominent encyclopedias. I think not only adoption of this resolution, but that we as parents ought to be talking to our school teachers to urge their support in our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Stanley. Those remarks are, of course, very appropriate. Do we have any other discussion? Not all in favor of adoption of resolution number 12, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Byrd will read the next resolution.
Resolution number 13, false glove strike. Whereas the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America is involved in strikes totaling approximately 600 employees at 3 plants of the Boss Manufacturing Company. The 3 struck plants are located at Oneida, Tennessee, struck December 1st. Now this was December 1st, 1964. That is the change there. Kewanee, Illinois, struck January 6th, 1965, which I appreciate if you'd added to yours. And Chillicothe, Missouri, struck January 7th, 1965. And whereas unfair labor practices charges have been filed with the National Labor Relations Board on behalf of the workers of each of the plants, and whereas the issues of the strike are basic, wages are minimal, there is no union security, no meaningful welfare program, and the workers do not even have the elemental right to arbitrate wage rates and production standards. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the delegates to the 3rd Biannual Convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO, refuse to buy or wear gloves made by the Boss Manufacturing Company until the strike is amicably settled, and be it further resolved that the delegates urge all members of their respective organizations to do likewise, and be it finally resolved that we notify the Boss Manufacturing Company of our intention and support of the strikers. Mr. Chairman, we urge the endorsement of this resolution.
You have heard the committee's report to adopt resolution number 13. Before we put the vote, the chairman of the committee, Brother Jackson, is invited me to like to have a word to say on the resolution. Brother Jackson.
Thank you, Claude. I would have reserved this spot for Ed Blair had he been here, since he's been in charge of this strike. Many of you know him. He's been in charge of the Oneida, Tennessee strike. The glove workers happens to be probably one of the most underpaid industries in the country today. They only become a part of our organization in the last few years. When they merged with the Amalgamated Clothing Workers, we made them a promise that we would organize all of the glove workers in this country if possible and better their conditions considerably. In attempting to do so, we found ourselves involved in these strikes that now, as you notice, have run over a year and a half. And you'd have to be in Oneida, Tennessee in the winter months. Oneida, Tennessee is located some 40 miles from Knoxville, Tennessee in the mountainous region. And the snow gets about waist deep. And these people have walked now 2 winters in the snow to better their conditions. Many of your organizations in this year and a half have supported this cause. Many of your members have ceased to buy these gloves, but we just wanted this convention to go on record of continuing support of this strike until it's concluded. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brother Jackson. Do we have any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the committee's report to adopt the resolution signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. This committee completes the committee's report. Thank you, Brother Jackson. At this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to turn the podium over to distinguished looking young lady up here sitting on the front row, Sarah Broom, who's in charge of the union label program for ACWA. Now, these people have been awfully thoughtful here this afternoon, recognizing the fact that our lady garment workers group in Mississippi were not able to have delegates present because of that particular situation. They've appointed a member of their own union, ACWA, to handle affairs for ILGW. So this time it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you Miss Sarah Broom. Sarah.
Mr. President, officers, delegates, and distinguished guests, thank you very, very much for inviting me to this convention. I feel very personally did though, being I'm a resident of Mississippi, but always glad to get that invitation. I know that many of you have heard me many times, and I thought today for a change that I would have some of our own members to bring to you the message of the union label. And as President Ramsey said, Russ McMahon asked yesterday if we would have someone to speak a few words in behalf of the ILGWU. And so, Farina Graham, Executive Board member of Local 563 of Hattiesburg, will bring to you, and she's also the WAR chairman of the Central Labor Council, will bring to you the message from the ILGWU. So now I present to you Farina Graham.
And delegates of the distinguished guests. As we all know, the ILGW is a union of pharmacists who represent 450,000 skilled workers, 8% of those are on labor, and many are the sole support of their families. Through their union, they've eliminated the long hours and the very bad working conditions of the past, and are continuing to negotiate for improving the standards of today.
See, I put a lot of tape at home to take. Before she got him,
in every garment that we wear. We can be conscious of right as well as fashion. This will be good for the garment workers and good for the community in which they work, and also good for America. I heard the other day that I played when we had Claude, union designer, to design his daughter's wedding trousseau. So you see how our own president feels so strongly for the union label. The union label is a symbol of decency, fair labor standards, and the American way of life. And I want to thank each of you for letting me get up here and say these few words in behalf of my sister workers of the ILGW.
get them a union. And you know what's the problem is.
And now, Mabel Sloat, President of Local 779 ACWA, Mauritius, Mississippi, also retired as Secretary of the Mississippi Joint Board, will speak to you in behalf of the ACWA Union Label. Mabel has a message to bring to you, and I want each of you to listen closely, because we really need your help. Mabel Sloat.
secretary, officers, delegates, and distinguished guests of this convention, it's indeed a pleasure for me to come before you this afternoon in behalf of the union label. The label you see sewed in the garment or stamped on the tail of the ship is not just a piece of cloth, but it is a symbol of better working conditions for me and many more like me who work in the clothing factory. President of Amalgamated Clothing Workers locals throughout this state have been asked to elect or appoint committees to make checks in the stores in their respective towns and report back to their membership what stores handle union label merchandise, and urge all members to patronize the stores who do sell union-made products. To date, most of my checking has been clothing, especially men's clothing. However, we will not limit our checking to clothing. Household furniture, appliances, processed food products should also be checked. We shall not forget to look for union services such as cleaning, laundry, barbering, cab drivers, hotel and restaurant workers, retail and department store clerks. Look for the emblem or the card in these establishments. Every union member should be a committee of one who religiously buys our products or the products of our brother unions. Then the union earned dollars will be spent for union products. Here, dollars will purchase the better commodities and services. It will enhance the organization of the unorganized worker. It will secure and stabilize better wages and working conditions for all workers. 600 employees of the Boss Glove Manufacturing Company in 3 different plants have been out on strike for over 1.5 years. A concentrated effort is being made in all areas of the country where Boss gloves are sold to acquaint both the retailer and consumer with the facts of this strike. We are asking the retail merchants to discontinue stocking this glove until this strike is settled. We are asking the man who wears this glove to stop wearing Boss gloves until the strike is settled. The steel workers in this area have been especially helpful. So many of them use Boss gloves in their work in the past, but have stopped buying until the strike is settled. In Meridian, 23 local unions sent resolutions to Boss Glove Manufacturing Company in Kewanee, Illinois, stating that their members would not buy or use Boss Glove until this strike was settled. Your brothers and sisters of Amalgamated Clothing Workers ask that every international union representative here at this convention send a telegram to Boss Glove Manufacturing Company in Kewanee, Illinois, to make a fair settlement of this strike with ACWA in all their plans. Please do this today. Just adding just a little to what Mabel has said, I'm sure you all enjoyed her speech, but please get those telegrams started this afternoon to Boss Manufacturing Company in Kewanee, Illinois. It will mean much to us. We are hoping that we have a soon settlement of this strike.
Our people have constantly walked 7 days a week, 24 hours around the clock. This is our strike today, it could be your strike tomorrow. So each international, each joint board, get those telegrams to going in, and we certainly will appreciate it. And any time that I can help you in any way, most of you know that you see me round and about. I don't think there's any of you that I have been into your union, your local union, or your international convention, and I'm always glad and available to help anywhere that I can be used. I want to thank you very, very much for all the help that I have had in regards to this strike and in surveying my stores, because many of you have so graciously helped me when I came into your area, and it's made my job much, much easier. Thank you very, very much. And now we will have the drawing of the suit of clothes, a box of shirts of 3, and a box of ties of 3. May the best people win. I can't say men because we've got our ladies here too. Of course, I want the ladies to understand this is men's suit, men's shirts, and ties. Because we don't give the ladies, because that's in the ILGW capacity, and we only have men, but you can always have one for your husband or your son. Some said I don't have one, but I think a suit they could get a husband, don't you? Now for the drawings.
I have to get my name in the fire, so I can't roll mine, that's for sure.
It's fake. I made it out now, it's fake. It's fake Caroline. Is she present? There she is. Stand up, let them see. Now what you gonna look like with a... What you gonna look like with a man in a suit on? Now, yes, he died in Chile, got the doggone suit. E.J. Brown. Man is local 433 Meridian. Well, at least you got something you can wear. He's on his way right now.
That food going up, I thought,
Looks like E.V. French, F-R-E-N-C-H. IAF Local 184. Is that IATSE? It is. Brother French in the back. Yes, sir. Well, maybe we please some of the lady delegates, you know, after this part of the program. A young lady walked to me earlier this morning and say, when you gonna let some of us ladies get up here and have something to say? I don't know if it'd be all right for her to have a word to say. I said, certainly, I'm getting tired of all these men talking in. It's about time some of these women go and talk. But we do appreciate Sarah and the work she's doing, and I'm sure that all of them ACWA are very much, that you're very proud of her and the work she's doing. Now the time has arrived, as designated in the Constitution, for the nomination of officers to serve the council for the next 2 years. This time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to turn the podium over to Robert L. Starnes, the Assistant Regional Director for the AFL-CIO. Would you come forward, please, Brother Starnes? I don't think they're going to let him come. He's coming.
and then I can see him.
Claude, can we have somebody available, if necessary, who can describe
boundaries of these central bodies of the state, and necessary interpretation of the Constitution regarded by Vice President I want to be sure that we conform with the Constitution, and we don't start these nominations before 2 o'clock. Some technician, some legal technician may decide that would be illegal, unconstitutional, irregular, irrelevant, and a few other little things. We want to be in a position where we can hold what we have. If we want to do something, have it get away from us. And as has been my practice for a long time, I usually tell a little story. In order to kill another minute, I'm going to tell this story. It was about the young man who got married. When he came back from his honeymoon, his best friend was asking him about married life. And he says, you know that gal I married? He says, when we get ready to go to bed at night, he says, that gal puts on vanishing cream, and she puts on eyebrow cream and eyeshadow cream, wrinkled cream around the corners of her eyes, wrinkled cream on her neck. She puts cream on her heels and on her knees, and she puts baby oil all over. His friend says, well, man, can you kiss her? Can you make love to that woman like that? He says, fella, did you ever try to hold a greased pig? So now, since the hour of 2 has arrived and a few seconds gone by, we will get to the business at hand. And Chair would ask that any person making a nomination please give his name, his international union, and his local union number. And similarly, of course, give the name of the person whom you are nominating, give that person's international union, that person's local union number, and the city from which that person comes. The chair now declares nominations to be open for the position of President of the Mississippi AFL-CIO to serve for a 2-year term. Bill Allen, President of the Hattiesburg Central Labor Council, member of the International Topographical Union, local number 647 in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. As I come before the podium here this afternoon, it's a privilege to say just a few words of a fellow that I feel like has done a tremendous job in the labor movement. I feel like that many times when we look at a man, we look at his outward appearance, we judge him that way sometimes. If he does something wrong, we're the first ones to holler. But I don't know anything any worse than to holler or throw a stone at somebody that has already made a mistake themselves. I've been in the printing business for several years. I know how reporters work. I know how editors work. I know how enemies of labor work. I feel like this afternoon that the time has come that we do away with a lot of sarcasm, find ourselves in the same mood, the same purpose for the same cause. And as a young man in the labor movement, I'm planning on staying in it. I have 3 children. I want to know what the labor movement's about. I'm going to teach it to them. But the man that I'd like to nominate at this time has been talked about. Some of you may not like him. And I might not like you. Have you ever thought about that? And you might not like me. So it hurts all of our feelings. But what I'd like to say is this. I'd like to nominate Mr. Claude Ramsey as president of the council again for 2 years. Due respect to him, I feel like that he has done a fine job. I know there's been many mistakes made on his part. There's been many mistakes made on my part. There's been many mistakes made on your part. At this time, I nominate Claude Ramsey as president of the council for the next 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there further nominations for president?
Mr. Chairman,
Brother Smith?
C.C. Smith, President of Jackson County Central Labor Union. Member of the United Papermakers and Paperworkers Local 203, Moss Corner. Mr. Chairman, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to stand here this afternoon, second to nomination of Brother Claude Ramsey for president of the Mississippi AFL-CIO. I guess I've known Claude probably as long as anyone in this hall. I had the pleasure of working with Claude Ramsey, even before he became president of my own local union. I followed Claude Ramsey. I served as president of his local union. I served as president of Jackson County Central Labor Union. Claude Ramsey served in these capacities before me. I feel that what little knowledge that I have of this labor movement, I feel that I gained this knowledge from Claude Ramsey. There's been many times that I disagreed with Claude, and I think this is democracy. I think it's anybody's right to disagree with anybody. But as Brother Pilot said up there from the podium when he nominated him, I think it's time that we started looking at some facts, facing the issues square, and look at the labor movement. Forget about our personal feelings. So, Mr. Chairman, again, I would like to say, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to second the nomination of Claude Ramsey. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it gives me a great deal of pleasure today to stand
Your name, please?
Jimmy Mizell, Local 203, Papermakers Union, Moss Point, Mississippi. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to stand before this convention today and say that I have the honor and humble myself to say it, that I'm chairman of the local union that Claude Ramsey belongs to. With that goes a certain amount of responsibility of the lead that he's taken in this state
and trying to put Mississippi back on the map of this United States in the labor movement. And all I could say was just to say I second what Brother Smith has said, and I certainly second this nomination. Thank you. I might explain briefly the reason for asking for your name and identification. We have the recorder up in the pigeon's roost there, and she won't know any of you. I can look at you and almost know who's talking. But the record should reflect who goes to the mic. Are there further nominations for president? For the second time, are there further nominations for president? For the third and last time, are there nominations for president? Hearing none, the chair will declare nominations closed and will entertain a motion that Brother Claude Ramsey be elected by acclamation and the unanimous vote of this convention. Brother B.C. Smith, so moved. Second by Brother Neatcase. You've heard the motion that Brother Claude Ramsey be elected by acclamation and the unanimous vote of this convention. All in favor, please make it known by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. So ordered. Brother Ramsey, who has been re-elected by the unanimous vote of this convention. The floor is now open for nominations for 5 vice presidents, no 2 of which shall come from the same Central Labor District. Brother Beckham.
Brother Chairman, T.G. Beckham, Business Agent, President, IBEW Local 1435, Jackson, Mississippi. I rise to place before you one of my brothers that I have had the honor and the pleasure of working with for a number of years. I'm not going to say how many because that would be maybe about how old he is and how old I am. But I have known this man and he has never shirked me. I have had the honor and the privilege of nominating him for this office before on 2 other occasions, and you have saw fit to elect him as one of your vice presidents, and he hasn't let you down, and I am sure that if you see fit to retain him as one of your 5 vice presidents, that he will not let you down in the future, years to come. We are in a pretty bad situation as far as the labor movement in this state is concerned. There are many trials and tribulations that we have got to overcome, and we feel like this man is qualified and able to help us over the hurdles regardless of what international or what local union that might be needing his services and his assistance. And I am speaking of none other than C.E. Jack Schaefer of IBEW 605, Jackson, Mississippi.
I'm very alive. President of Local 892 West 4th District, 8278. I want to nominate at this time one of the finest men I think that is in the labor movement today. I don't have to stand again
talk loud and long about him because everybody in his union in the state of Mississippi knows him. And the guy that had his first local 563, I'll give you James Jackson.
James Jackson.
Brother James Jackson has been nominated. Are there further nominations?
Mr. Chairman, Frank Bounds, Local 3509, Communication Workers of America, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I would like to make a nomination for Vice President. The person I am about to nominate is an old and very active member for the labor movement. We have said repeatedly at this convention that we are in trying times. Now is the time to rely on the experience of those that have been through trying times before, I think. This person that I am talking about has served as president of his local with the exception of 2 terms since 1949. He was instrumental in organizing the first telephone workers in the state of Mississippi, along with Mississippi. He is presently the president of the Central Labor Union in his district. He is chairman of the Lee County Neighborhood Youth Corps, the anti-poverty program. He is a very dynamic leader, recognized, I believe, by CWA as being the one that can best represent all of the people of AFL-CIO in Mississippi. He is none other than Mr. E.B. Edwards, president of Local 3517, Tupelo, Mississippi.
Brother E.B. Edwards has been nominated. We have 3 nominations in hand, 5 are to be nominated. Brother Jack Schaefer.
Mr. Chairman, it gives me a great deal of pleasure this afternoon to rise the nomination of Brother Marvin Taylor. I am appearing here as Vice President on vote. I have served on the executive committee with Brother Taylor for the past 4 years, and I have never found him shirking his responsibility or found him conducting himself or any way that would be contrary to a Christian and a gentleman. Thank you.
Can you tell us, Brother Taylor's local union number, please?
Local 387, Columbus, Mississippi. Fire Police.
Thank you. Brother Schaefer has been nominated. Brother Beckham. Brother Taylor, I'm sorry. Taylor has been nominated by Brother Schaefer. Brother Beckham.
Brother Chairman, I rise again to place a name in nomination. For the record, I believe you asked T.G. Beckham, President and Business Agent of IBEW Local 1435, Jackson, Mississippi. This gentleman comes from Meridian, Mississippi. I have known him for better than 25 years. Because I have been coming to this convention, the Mississippi AFL-CIO convention, for a number of years, and then prior to that, some 15, 16, 18 years of the old State Federation of Labor. And Brother Brown, whom I speak of, Painters Local 433, was at the first convention that I ever attended in Biloxi, Mississippi, of the old State Federation. He is no stranger when it comes to organized labor. He has been a member of organized labor for better than 40 years, and he tells me that he is a lifetime member of organized labor because he intends to stay into it as long as he lives. And this council saw fit, the delegates assembled, saw fit to expand its vice president's number from 3 to 5, and it does give me pleasure to place before you Mr. E.J. Brown, local painters, local 433, a longtime friend of mine, for your consideration as the 5th vice president. Thank you.
Brother Brown has been nominated. Are there further nominations? It appears that there are no further nominations. Let's see if these 5 gentlemen will accept. Mr. Jack Schaefer, do you accept the nomination? James Jackson, do you accept? Brother E.B. Edwards, do you accept? Brother Marvin Taylor, do you accept? Brother E.J. Brown, do you accept? We have 5 nominees, 5 acceptances. Are there further nominations? For the last time, are there further nominations for a vice president? Hearing none, the chair declares nominations are closed, and the chair will accept a motion to elect the 5. Brother Jack Schaefer, Brother James Jackson, Brother E.B. Edwards, Brother Marvin Taylor, Brother E.J. Brown. By acclamation and by the unanimous vote of this convention, do I hear such a motion? Motion by Brother John Gillespie. Is there a second? Second by Brother from Greenville, Clayton Moss. You've heard the motion that these 5 gentlemen be elected by acclamation and by the unanimous vote of the convention. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is so carried. And Brother Schaefer, Brother Jackson, Brother Edwards, Brother Taylor, and Brother Brown have been elected as vice presidents of this organization to serve for the coming 2 years. Nominations are now open for Secretary Treasurer.
Mr. Chairman,
Brother Jackson.
James Jackson, member of Local 563, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, representing this convention the Mississippi Joint Board, the central body, so to speak, of our organization. I rise to place in nomination the name of a man that I've known 2/3 of my lifetime. I worked on the same job with him. We served as the first fellow officers in the first amalgamated local, or the oldest that we now have in existence in this state. He's worked as an organizer for us. He's one of the few men in this room that I've even slept with. Sometimes we find a hotel and we wouldn't have but one bed, we both have to get in. I think all of you probably recognize by this time who I'm going to nominate. It's your present Secretary Treasurer. He served this organization some 6 or 7 years as a Secretary Treasurer. Before that, he served as one of the Vice Presidents. I give you my good friend and yours, Thomas W. Knight.
Thomas W. Oh, that W don't go in there.
Brother Jackson, when you tell us of your sleeping with Brother Knight, I facetiously ask, are you bragging or complaining?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir?
I'm C.B. Carroll, member of the IATSC Local number 589, Jackson, Mississippi. It gives me great pleasure to second the nomination of Thomas Knight, who is also a member of my local.
Thank you, Brother Carroll. Are there further nominations? For the second time, are there further nominations as Secretary Treasurer?
For the third and last time, are there further nominations for Secretary-Treasurer? Hearing none, the chair declares nominations closed. And the chair will accept the same type motion to elect Brother Knight as Secretary-Treasurer by acclamation and by the unanimous vote of this convention. Brother Bowman from Greenville so moves. Brother Smith from Morse Point seconds. You've heard the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. It is so ordered, and Brother Knight has been elected Secretary-Treasurer of the Council for the coming 2 years by acclamation. And this is what I call unanimity. We now come to executive board members. And the chair declares the floor is open for nominations for 10 executive board members.
Ladies first.
Thank you, John. You're up there 2 years.
Can't hear.
Stand closer to the mic, they can't hear you.
Well, you catch my first time.
That's doing better.
Lenny McCullough, local 643 ACWA. Quite reluctant to come up here. It seems that this place is dominated by men who are good speakers. And I had assumed that most of the time when we open our mouth, we're out of order anyway. But I think I'm in order now. I would like to place on the ballot the name of one of our members who served for the past 2 years. He is qualified and capable. I'd like to nominate Ronald Davis, local 643.
I'll tell you one thing, anytime a lady gets ready to talk, she's not out of order. And if you don't believe it, some of you guys ask your wives. If there's no objection, the chair will alternate mics. Brother Gillespie.
John Gillespie, IBEW, Executive Board. I rise to nominate a well-known member of organized labor, the northeast section of Mississippi, where it's harder to do anything for organized labor than any other section of the state. This gentleman that I rise to nominate has proven himself worthy within this section of the state and is now business manager, local union 852 in Corinth of the IBEW, and is also president of the Central Labor Body of Corinth. I place in nomination Mr. S.H. Dees.
Brother Dees has been nominated.
Ralph Road, Columbus, Mississippi, local 1359 painter. I'd like this time put in a nomination for C.S. Morgan, administration of the painters in Columbus, has been there over 20 years and worked hard for the labor organization. I'd like this time for nomination C.S. Morgan.
C.S. what?
Morgan.
Spell it.
M-O-R-G-A-N.
C-S-M-O-R-D-A-N. Oh, Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N.
That's right.
Sister Culliver.
I'm Ursula Culliver from local 3511 CWJ in Jackson, Mississippi. Mr. Chairman, fellow delegates, I wish to make a nomination for the executive board. The person I wish to nominate has been an active member of organized labor since 1946. She served on the CWJ bargaining committee in 1955. She's presently serving as board chairman for the Meridian Central Labor Union and is serving on the labor management committee for the Meridian Chamber of Commerce. The person I'm nominating is Beth Harper, Secretary of CWA Local 3514, Meridian, Mississippi.
Give me that last name again, Beth.
Beth Harper.
H-A-R-P-E-R.
No, sir. H-A-R-B-O-U-R.
H-A-R-B-O-U-R. Thank you, ma'am.
Ray,
Ray, as that mic turned around, try it the other way and see if it'll do better.
Ray Smith Park.
Turn it around. That's it.
Ray Smith Park, Rubber Workers, Jackson, Mississippi. I'd like to place a nomination for president of a local union. The Rubber Workers here in Jackson. He's president of my local union. He's doing a good job there, and I think he'll be an asset to the council here, the executive board member, C.A. Dunlap, local union 363 Rubber Workers.
Hubert Mills, local 503, chemical workers. I'd like to place a nomination for man as president of the local union. He's also financial secretary of the Central Labor Body in Greenville, Mississippi. Clayton Malls, steel workers of local 1543.
Right, M-O-S-S, Moss. Brother Erickson?
John Erickson, local 480, Jackson, Mississippi, IBEW. Like to place a nomination, L.D. Clark, the IBEW 1209, Brady, Mississippi.
L.E. Carr, C-A-R-R. Clark, L.D., it's L.D. Clark, isn't it? Right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Molly Bird, member of OPEIU, number 204, Pascagoula. I'd like to present to you a man worthy of consideration as board member of Mississippi AFL-CIO. He is our business agent of local 204. He's immediate past president of Jackson County Central Labor Union. Presently, he is vice president of the same organization. He is a board member of the 5th District Court. Also, he is presently a board member of Mississippi AFL-CIO. I nominate Mr. H.H. Robbins, local 204, OPEIU, Pascagoula.
H.J. who?
Robbins.
Robbins.
Overstranger Carpenter of 3031 in Jackson. I'd like to nominate Robert Woodson of Carpenter, local 3031 of Jackson, who is our vice president and business agent. Robert Woodson.
Billy Williams, IBEW local 1211, Gulfport, Mississippi. The man that I want to place a nomination, I won't take up your time by telling you his work. He's chairman of CLU in Harrison County and also chairman of the Women Workers Local 245 in Gulfport. That's Mr. T.L. Nicky.
Mr. T.L. Necase, N-E-C-A-S-E. N-E-C-A-I-S-E. According to my past calculations, we have 10 nominees for 10 positions. Are there further nominations? Hearing none, let's see if we have acceptances. Sister Merle Davis, do you accept the nomination? Sister Davis accepts. Brother S.H. Dees, do you accept? He does. Brother C.S. Morgan, do you accept? He does. Sister Beth Harbaugh, do you accept? She does. Brother C.A. Dunlap, do you accept? He does. Brother Clayton Moss, do you accept? He does. Brother L.D. Clark, do you accept? Brother Clark accepts. Brother A.J. Robbins, do you accept? Brother Robbins accepts.
Brother Robert Woodson, do you accept? Well, yeah, I see you now. Brother T.L. Nikes, do you accept? 10 nominees, 10 acceptances. Are there further nominations for the executive board? For the last time, are there further nominations for the executive board? Hearing none, nominations are closed, and the chair will accept a motion that all 10 nominees, Sister Davis, Brother Dees, Brother Morgan, Sister Harbour, Brother Dunlap, Brother Moss, Brother Clark, Brother Robbins, Brother Woodson, and Brother Nikes, be elected by acclamation and by the unanimous vote of this convention. Brother John Gillespie makes such a motion. A whole dozen in the back. I see Smitty and 2 or 3 others holding up their hands. All in favor of the motion, please make it known by saying aye. Opposed for the opposite sign. You 8 brothers and 2 sisters have been elected by acclamation. And why don't all of you stand, the last 8, or the last 10? Sister Davis, Sister Harbour, I ask for the ladies to stand first because they are darn sure the prettiest. Brother Dees, Brother Morgan, Brother Dunlap, Brother Moss, Brother Clark, Brother Robbins, and Brother Woodson. Those people constitute your executive board. Brother Ramsey? Well, congratulations, boy, that's a billion. I give you a couple of minutes to discuss this one a little bit. It's almost unbelievable. Please be in order. Will the convention come to order? He'll have to give you a few minutes on this one. This was the first time it's happened in my memory that we didn't have a contest. And I want to congratulate the delegates on selecting the board in such a fine fashion. It looks appears to me that we do have unity in this convention. Now, Brother Smith advised me he'd like to call a meeting of his organizing committee right now in Parlor 8. Now that we don't have a contest, it means that we're going to save an awful lot of time. With that election, and I think probably some of you might have been thinking about this, would have taken up a lot of our time tomorrow. And maybe we will be able to move this thing along, get rid of a lot of our resolutions, get them out of the way where you can get out earlier tomorrow afternoon, now sure enough. Do we have any other committees that would like to meet at this time before I call up the committee reports? I'd like to ask all those committee chairmen that are ready to report, either partially or otherwise, to please come up on the podium. Please come to order. Brother Schaefer advises me that the Constitution and Bylaws Committee is ready to report. Brother Schaefer.
Thank you, Brother Ramsey. I believe the nominations that we just went through will have some effect on the resolution that I'm bringing before you at this time. Resolution number 2. You'll get this. I'll read it within its entirety, and your committee has recommended a couple of changes in it. I think this is a most important resolution, the one that we had yesterday with the controversy on it. This one could be controversial if you so desire, but I believe that the committee has worked out something that should be acceptable to you. I'll read the resolution within its entirety and the amendments as suggested by the committee, and then I'll give you the reasons why this is necessary. Whereas the rules governing the AFL-CIO state central bodies issued by the AFL-CIO Executive Council on September the 21st, 1965, require that the constitution of all state central bodies shall conform to said rules and regulations, and whereas several sections of the Constitution of the Mississippi AFL-CIO are in conflict with these rules and regulations, and whereas several sections of the Constitution are ambiguous and need clarifying, now therefore be it resolved that Article 3, Section 2 be amended to read as follows. Section 2. Affiliated local unions in good standing shall be entitled to representation in votes and conventions of the council based upon the average number of members on whom per capita tax has been paid for the 12-month period in 90 days preceding the month of the convention. The average membership of local unions affiliated for less than 12-month period prescribed shall be determined by dividing the total per capita tax paid for all months affiliated by 12, and the number of delegates and votes shall be based on such average of members. Local unions affiliating during the 90-day period preceding the convention shall be entitled to one delegate and one vote. The schedule of representation shall be as follows: 50 members or less, 2 delegates; 51 to 150 members, 3 delegates; 151 to 300 members, 4 delegates; 301 to 600 members, 5 delegates. For each additional 400 members or fractional part thereof, 1 additional delegate. And be it further resolved that Article 3, Section 3 be amended to read as follows. Section 3. A delegate shall be entitled to request a roll call vote based upon the per capita tax membership of the affiliated locals, providing 30% of the delegates in convention agree. And be it further resolved that Article 6, Section 6 be amended to read as follows. Section 6. When the nominations for an office have been completed, the vote may be taken by acclamation if there is only one nominee. Otherwise, the roll shall be called and each delegate shall rise as his own name is called and cast his vote or votes for his choice of the candidates. It shall require a majority of all votes cast to elect. If there be no election on the first ballot, the roll shall be called again on the 2 having the highest number of votes. The Secretary of Treasurer shall preserve the record of all roll calls and keep them available for inspection by any party at interest until after the following election. And be it further resolved that Article 10, Section 6 be amended to read as follows. Section 6. An organization which has been suspended or which has withdrawn may be reinstated within a year of such suspension or withdrawal by payment of all amounts due at the time of suspension or withdrawal, and per capita tax from that date to the date of reinstatement, in addition to a reinstatement fee of $10. An organization which has been suspended or withdrawn for more than 1 year may be reinstated by payment of a reinstatement fee of $10 and 6-month per capita tax. Convention votes for local unions following in this category shall be computed on the basis of Article 3, Section 2. The Executive Committee may modify the reinstatement fee where extenuating circumstances exist, which in their judgment warrant such action. And be it further resolved that the following article be added to the Constitution. Article 13, Section 1. When conflict arises between this Constitution and the AFL-CIO rules and regulations governing state central bodies, the rules and regulations of the AFL-CIO shall prevail. This is the resolution as submitted by your executive board. And if you'll turn back to the second page, dealing with Article 6, Section 6, and reading, when nominations for an office have been completed, the vote may be taken by acclamation if there is only one nominee. Otherwise, the roll shall be called and each delegate shall rise as his own name is called and cast his vote or votes by printed ballot. Make that insertion in your copy, if you will, for his choice of the candidates. Continuing on, it shall require a majority of all votes cast to elect. If there be no election on the first ballot, the roll shall be called again on the two having the highest number of votes. And then an amendment in this sentence, the Secretary of Treasury shall preserve the record of the election, strike out all roll calls, and insert the election, and keep them available for inspection by any party of interest until after the following election. Now, this is the only changes recommended. I would like to give you the reasoning behind this that came to your board's attention. You see, in your first whereas, rules governing the AFL-CIO state central bodies issued by AFL-CIO Executive Council on September 21st, 1965. These rules were modified, and I won't burden you with the entire representation and voting section, but subparagraph B says a roll call on elections may be conducted orally, or it may be conducted by written or printed ballots where deemed desirable to expedite the holding of the election, provided each ballot clearly shows the name, organization, and number of votes of the delegates casting the ballot. Such ballots shall become part of the records of the central body and shall be preserved and available for examination by any delegate or officer of an affiliated organization for a period of not less than 6 months. Now, this is the committee's recommendation, Mr. Chairman, and we move its adoption.
You've heard the committee's report to adopt resolution number 2 as amended by the committee. I might add that I think those are very good amendments, and they certainly clarify how the election will be conducted. Do we have any discussion on the motion? None, all in favor of adoption resolution number 2? All right, big shift.
As your committee views this, there will only be one change from what you're accustomed to doing under the present procedure. This is that your ballot will have your name on it. This is according to the rule. The number of votes that you cast and your name on it. This is still a certain amount of secrecy, but as we understand from Brother Snitzley yesterday, if you cast more than your own ballot, actually it's not a secret in the first place. I thought I would call this to your attention before the vote.
Any discussion on resolution number 2? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Sheriff, I believe that completes the report of your committee, does it not? Now let's see. might make an announcement here too, since we've had all board members and officers elected by acclamation. We no longer need an election committee. Brother Moore asked me to discharge his committee, which I will do at this time, with the thanks of the convention. So the election committee is discharged, and you can forget about all that work he's going to have to do tonight. What we're going to try to do here, frankly, is to take each committee, those that are ready with a full report, we'll get as many of them out of the way this afternoon as we can, and then they won't have to come back. So this time I'm going to recognize Brother Pilot, Chairman of the Committee on Political Education. Brother Pilot.
Thank you, Brother Ramsey. Vote Committee, Committee on Political Education, Committee composed of William Pilot, Chairman, Eula Burdett, Bev Harbor, Jarena Graham, Eloise Hampton, SHDs, Andrew Brown, Robert Woodson, J.B. Cobb, and Doris Miller have met, and we present the following report to you at this time. In this great society that we live in has become more complex for the working man and woman. But union members are making better wages than ever before, yet our people have lost sight of what it means to elect a public official who will be fair and impartial in all phases of politics. COPE activities have been varied but extended throughout the state of Mississippi, with much of its activities centered in the 5th Congressional District, which a contest was held with COPE playing a big part in the congressional race. Businessmen, professional men, and common laborers have took note of the COPE activities and the effectiveness of the organization. Other groups, such as the Farm Bureau politicians, have patterned their political program after our own organization. Many gains made by organized labor at the bargaining table have been attacked in state legislatures and in Congress by reactionary groups who cannot achieve their objective through negotiation. It is also true that the needs of union members can only be met by legislation for the general welfare of all of our people. Good government comes through the election of good officials, men and women who seek public office to help their communities, their state, and their nation to be a better place in which to live in. It should be the intent of each individual directly connected with COPE to educate their people of the necessity of actively participating in the activities and the endeavors of each phase of political action. The enemies of organized labor have worked overtime to destroy our program, and this should cause union members to unite in larger numbers for a common endeavor. The committee feels that now is the time to begin a positive action program in each district for the upcoming elections in 1967. Also, the committee wishes to express appreciation to Thomas Knight, State COPE Director, for a job well done considering the odds that were before him. This is the report of the COPE Committee. On behalf of the committee, I move that the convention receive this report at this time.
You've heard the report of the Committee on Political Education as read by Brother Pilot. We have any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion to adopt. You want the full bill? You want the full bill? Okay, Brother Stanley.
Chairman W.O. Stanley, CWA. I'd like to speak in behalf of the motion on political education. It's an important aspect of our total union movement. We have got a real education job to do among our members in this state. All of our members. And as you know, better than anyone else, it takes dollars to conduct a political education program. And I want to urge all of the people to not only give lip service to this kind of resolution, but to give their full energy and support to this kind of resolution. I'd like to point out to you, if any of you have any doubts about the ability to work in political education in Mississippi with all the pressures from the adversaries on the management side and from the various elements who are out to destroy us, in our attempts to get dollars, I'd like to just take just a moment to demonstrate to you that COPE dollars, which are a part of the total political education, can be raised. Seated in this room today is a delegation from Mississippi locals, Mississippi people just like you, that for 7 consecutive years they have raised in equivalent to or in excess of $1 per member for 7 consecutive years. There are other locals in this room that have raised COPE dollars of $1 per member for 5 consecutive years. Or simply said this way, Mr. Chairman, I'd like for the CWA delegates to stand. 13 of the 15 locals this year, 1966, collected in excess of $1 per member from their members. Would they please stand and just show that COPE dollars can be collected? Please stand.
Thank you, Bill. Any further discussion on the motion to adopt the committee's report? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Pilot.
The COPE committee has 5 resolutions that we'd like to present to you at this time. If you have your resolutions before you, resolution number 3 on political education. I will present resolution 3 and resolution 15. And Doris Miller, one of the members of the COPE committee, will be presenting 17, 18, and 19. First, let's go to resolution number 3, political education. Whereas considerable progress has been made toward a higher standard of living for members of organized labor in Mississippi through the process of collective bargaining. As a result, the enemies of the labor movement have become more and more successful in recent years in securing passage of legislation which has drastically reduced the effectiveness of our union contracts. And whereas, with over 55,000 AFL-CIO members residing in Mississippi, organized labor has the largest potential vote of any single group in the state. Properly mobilized, this potential could influence the outcome of all statewide political contests and local contests in areas where a substantial number of union members live. And whereas the Mississippi AFL-CIO, realizing the necessity and importance of changing this potential to qualified and informed voters, adopted a comprehensive political education program in 1961. Progress has been made in some areas, which is acknowledged by some politicians and office holders. And whereas the proponents of labor crippling legislation are aware of our stepped-up political activity and are therefore expanding their political efforts to destroy unions. And whereas it is obvious that the labor movement must expand and strengthen this program of political education at every level if we're to preserve our standard of living and continue to make progress in the future. Now therefore be it resolved that the delegates assembled in this 3rd biennial convention of Mississippi AFL-CIO, July 25 through 27, 1966, in Jackson, Mississippi, go on record in total support of the political education program of the Mississippi AFL-CIO. And be it further resolved that this convention call upon all AFL-CIO affiliates in Mississippi to participate and cooperate in the fullest extent in the expansion and strengthening of our efforts to bring about a more favorable political climate. And be it finally resolved that the slogan, "Every union member a qualified voter," be included in the adoption of this resolution, and a copy be mailed to each AFL-CIO organization in Mississippi. Respectfully submitted, Executive Board, Mississippi AFL-CIO. Mr. Chairman, I move that the convention adopt this resolution at this time.
All right, the committee's report to adopt resolution number 3. Do we have any discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered by the panel.
Let's look at resolution number 15. Women's Activities Department. Whereas the labor movement in the state of Mississippi needs to be more effective politically, and whereas in the past women in the trade union movement have not played a prominent role in Mississippi politics, and whereas women are now showing more understanding, knowledge, and interest in politics, they must play an even greater part in the future by not only supporting proposals for economic and social progress, but by actively serving as volunteers, working toward the realization of a better life for all. And whereas, since the Women's Activities Department has been formed, women have become a large and important factor, not only in Mississippi politics, but also national politics. And whereas the efforts of our Women's Activity Department is going to determine to a great extent our political effectiveness and prestige. And whereas the Women's Activities Department can be a most important factor in dispelling the present political and educational apathy of trade union members, so that the labor's program in Mississippi can become a reality. And whereas we extend our thanks and appreciation to all the ladies who have devoted many hours to the establishment and maintenance of the central card files. Now therefore be it resolved that the third biennial convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO assembled in Jackson, Mississippi, July 25, 26, and 27, 1966, encourage each central body in Mississippi to take immediate steps to strengthen its political efforts through the promotion and implementation of a more effective Women's Activities Department. Respectfully submitted, Executive Board, Mississippi AFL-CIO. Now let's go back to the front page and go down to the second to the last paragraph where it says, whereas we extend our thanks and appreciation. There was actually a typographical error there, pertaining to this resolution. It should be a transposition of those two paragraphs where it says, whereas we extend our thanks, should be on the bottom. Now therefore be it resolved should go in the place of that one. So if you'll make the change, show some marking on your resolution sheet there where it says, now therefore be it resolved, show that it should go under whereas the Women's Activities Department can be a most important factor. Then change the other paragraph where it says, whereas we extend our thanks, and put in, be it further resolved, we extend our thanks and appreciation to all the ladies who have devoted many hours to the establishment and maintenance of the central card files. Mr. Chairman, I move that the convention adopt this resolution at this time.
We've heard the committee's report to adopt resolution number 15 with the suggested changes. Do we have any discussion on the motion to adopt? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Pound.
This time, Doris Miller is going to present resolutions 17, 18, and 19 before the convention.
Resolution number 17, political unity. Whereas many of the problems besetting the labor movement in our state today can be traced to the enactment of restrictive legislation at both the national and state levels. Since 1947, the anti-labor groups in this country have been more than successful in securing the passage of legislation designed to either cripple or destroy the progress of collective bargaining. If this trend continues, it will soon be virtually impossible for our local or international unions to properly service their membership. Experience has taught us the importance of uniting on the economic front. We must now apply the same philosophy to our political action program. And whereas, with over 50,000 members of organized labor residing in Mississippi, labor should be one of the dominant forces in the political life of the state instead of itself being dominated. Unfortunately, one of the reasons that our enemies have been more than successful at the state level stems from the fact that they have, on many occasions, been able to divide our forces and render us ineffective in political elections. The election of those public officials who have consistently sponsored legislation detrimental to our cause can largely be attributed to this fact. Consequently, we must take steps to correct this situation or face almost certain destruction. And whereas certain political figures and or their associates have begun to move around the state in an effort to secure commitments or endorsements from the leaders and members of our local union. This is an obvious attempt to circumvent labor's effectiveness in the elections of 1967. If these forces are successful, we may well expect another series of setbacks by way of legislative action in 1968. As responsible leaders of our movement, it is incumbent upon us to stop this movement before it is too late. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the delegates in attendance at this convention unequivocally pledge that they will not make any commitments to or endorsements of any candidate for statewide political office until the Mississippi AFL-CIO Committee on Political Education has reviewed the record and examined the platform of all the candidates. A report along with recommendations will then be submitted to a special convention called for that purpose. And be it finally resolved that a copy of this resolution be mailed to all local unions, central bodies, building and trades councils, joint boards, and state associations in Mississippi, and that they urge their entire membership to concur and assist in its implementation, whereby our people will be firmly united in the next statewide election. Respectfully submitted by CWA Local 3511. Mr. Chairman, I move that the convention adopt this resolution.
The committee's report to adopt resolution number 17. Do you have any discussion? Senator George Jackson, Local 203 in Moss Point.
George Jackson, Local 203 in Moss Point, Mississippi. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a few words about this political unity. We just came through a political campaign in Jackson County, Mississippi, the 5th District. And such a slum campaign that has ever been carried on in the state of Mississippi, or the United States of America, was carried on in our county. We had a fellow that Coke and Labor partially or more or less backed Mr. Eddie Coyote against incumbent William Calmer. We didn't have the political unity in our county that we ought to have in the state of Mississippi, or the state of Alabama, or any state, matter of fact. The state of Louisiana comes the closest of any we've ever had. We had a campaign conducted by William Calmer that cut Mr. Eddie Coyote probably so deep in the political ranks that there's no telling when he might crawl back. For the sole reason of political unity. We couldn't reach the people because we didn't have the political power in Jackson County. The business administration, the press, television stations, backed Calmer. We had entire sheets in the newspaper backing Calmer and tearing Eddie Coyote down because he was backed by the Organization of Labor in that county. One campaign's slogan on the papers, I may have this just a little wrong, but what it meant was a vote for progress with Calmer and a vote for labor power to take over your business affairs of the 5th District by Eddie Kaya. In this conference that we've had here today, in the nomination and election of officers, showed a small, and I'm very reluctant to say that, political unity, because since I've been here Sunday right after dinner, I've heard some of the awfulest political speeches and talks on the people of this labor movement, of the one or two that we've had speakers here that back the labor movement in the state of Mississippi, downing these people, cutting them, and everything but shooting them right here on the floor. And that's not political unity. We have local unions here in this organization now that's not even affiliated probably with COPA because they can't afford to give $1. And as I heard an international representative bring a statement across to us today in a private caucus, that he was representing a local union that gave over $2,100 to an organization that was more or less preserving a landmark or something like that in his state, and that come from 21 members of his local, gave $100 apiece, and he can't get a one of those 21 members to contribute a dime toward political education. This is the thing that's facing us, as Brother Ramsey has tried to state. He's took everyone on, the press, the television stations, towards the political unity of this state, bringing this state from the bottom of the rung, you might say. And I've heard a lot of things about that, up to a productive, industrial, economic state in the United States. And I feel like that if we would unite behind our president, our executive board, our committee members, and fight this fight with him instead of against him, we could overcome this conflict that set us back in our industry and everything that operates in the state of Mississippi. I feel like myself that if every local union in this audience, and there is some here, that needs to go back home and work on COPE, political unity, work on the other unions in your plant, in your industry, wherever you are or whatever you may do, and get these people, try to educate these people to what we're trying to do as the state AFL-CIO body, and affiliate these local unions with the state AFL-CIO and kick out some of the Ku Klux Klan, John Birchers, and a communist organization that's thriving within the hearts of our own local unions. I know that there because we have one in the heart of our local union, a fine John Birch society. And it has confronted us. It's confronted Brother Ramsey. It's confronted Brother Smith as president of the Central Labor Union, and he's out of our local too. Brother Dewey Mizell is the president of our local union at this time. It's confronted him. It's confronted our international representatives, Dunaway, Vice President Mark Fisher. The John Birch Society is operating as a communist organization on political unity, and if we could get political unity amongst the labor that they have succeeded in getting, there wouldn't be no stopping in the legislation, in the industry, and the growth of the state of Mississippi. Mr. Chairman, I'm very much in favor of this motion.
Thank you. I'd say I give him the obligation when he joined local union. Brother Taylor?
Mr. Chairman, by way of emphasis, I'd like to have us look again at this resolve. Now therefore be it resolved that the delegates in attendance at this convention unequivocally pledge that they will not make any commitments to or endorsements of any candidate for a statewide political office until the Mississippi AFL-CIO Committee on Political Education has reviewed the record and examined the platform of all of the candidates. I don't think too much emphasis can be placed on that particular resolve. We are coming, I think, fast to a new day in political action in the state of Mississippi. We will recall that the state legislature was reapportioned to conform to some of the mandates or some of the decisions of the United States Supreme Court a few short years ago. But we find that did not meet the requirements, and that under a recent decision of the federal judges, which was headed up by Honorable J.P. Coleman, we find that it will be necessary for a second reapportionment. And since the legislature at this past session did not see fit to tackle that problem, the governor has decided, based on the recent decision of this three judges, that there will be a special call session of the legislature at which time that will be done. We will, in 1968, have a session of the legislature that will be responsive to the will of the people of the state of Mississippi in a manner and a fashion that has never been done before. So we will not, and we should not, be led off into byways, into thickets of endorsing people prematurely. I just want to emphasize that particular resolution and hope that we will not be led into a thicket, and that we will conform to the provisions of this resolve, and due to the unity that has prevailed here in this convention, and in the due to the fact also that we will have new voters coming into the picture with the elimination of the poll tax, I say again that Mississippi will finally and at last come into its own in the political action field. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion to adopt resolution number 17, signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Pilot.
Resolution number 18, county consolidation. Whereas the recent session of the Mississippi Legislature adopted House Concurrent Resolution number 36, a constitutional amendment which gives the legislature authority to consolidate or abolish certain counties, and whereas this amendment takes away the people's rights to vote on any such proposition, and whereas the United States Supreme Court has already nullified a similar plan in the state of Alabama, it seems reasonable to assume this plan would also be nullified by the courts if enacted. And whereas the Mississippi AFL-CIO feels that there is a need to reduce the number of counties for reasons other than those suggested by HCR 36. Many small counties throughout the state have much in common and should be allowed to consolidate, provided the people in those counties are allowed to vote for any such plan. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this, the third biennial convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO, does go on record as opposing HCR 36 and urges the membership to vote against it on November 8, 1966, and be it further resolved that this convention is opposed to any plan that may be proposed in the future that takes away the fundamental right of the people to vote and regulates it to the Mississippi Legislature. Respectfully submitted by the Executive Board of the Mississippi AFL-CIO. Mr. Chairman, I move that the convention adopt this resolution.
report to adopt resolution number 18, which actually puts the council on record in opposition to constitutional amendment that will be submitted to the voters on November the 8th. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the adoption of resolution number 18 signify by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Pilot?
Can't get rid of me now. Resolution number 19, State Auditor. Whereas the Mississippi Legislature recently adopted House Concurrent Resolution number 38, a constitutional amendment allowing the State Auditor to succeed himself. And whereas the Mississippi AFL-CIO deems this a forward step, no logical reason exists for the present prohibition. And whereas the Labor Council feels that an amendment should have also been adopted whereby the State Treasurer could succeed himself. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the third biennial convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO does go on record in support of this constitutional amendment and urges our membership to vote for it on November 8, 1966. Be it further resolved that the officers of the Mississippi AFL-CIO be instructed to work for the passage of a constitutional amendment that will also allow the State Treasurer to succeed himself. Respectfully submitted by the Executive Board of the Mississippi AFL-CIO. Mr. Chairman, I also move that the convention adopt this resolution.
Ready for the committee's report to adopt resolution number 19. Do we have any discussion? You want to get it over with, don't you? All in favor of the motion signify by 19 by saying aye. Brother Pilot.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say just one thing, and then I'd like to ask that the Court Committee be relieved of their duties. The young gentleman that spoke a while ago was telling you the truth. One of the dirtiest campaigns that has ever been slated in Mississippi was in the 5th District. I was privileged to be able to do the brochure work for the council there in the 5th District, the 16 counties. I think they had the brochure on every paper in the 16 counties. They tore us up pretty bad. They called us a lot of ugly names, and I don't like it. But I believe that after this campaign was over, that more of our union members will see that it does take unity, and that we can do a job, and more people has taken note of what we can do. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that the committee be relieved of their duties at this time.
Brother Pilot. Brother Pilot state this completes the report of the Committee on Political Education. We'd like to have this committee discharged with thanks to the convention. Let's give them a round. Very fine report, and Brother Pilot's remarks were very appropriate. The candidate running in the 5th District was consistently voted against everything that we stand for. As Tom told you yesterday, actually ran against the labor movement. We've got our work cut out for us. The Legislative Committee.
The Legislative Committee was composed of M.E. Ferguson, W.A. Stevens, T.J. Means, Robert Fly, Millard Evans, Olin Spencer, Russell Warren, Bernie Watts. I would like to take just a moment to express my appreciation for the wonderful spirit of unity and cooperation in working with this committee. Every member was very, very serious in the things that we considered. We had a discussion here most all morning. We have revised some of our resolutions slightly and word changes. And as has been said here before, it looked like for a while that nothing could be united around this convention.
But certainly in our committee, we were united in these things, and certainly we saw it again demonstrated today that we can all unite behind things and get the job done without even having an election right here. And I don't think anybody expected this. And so maybe we're coming around in this convention where we can get the job done. Number 4.
And just bald-faced lies if the press in this state has had anything to do with it. You have a duty and an obligation to contact that person and say, look, do you know what the facts of life are about this particular situation? If you don't, let's sit down and talk about it and let's find out what the facts are. We need that kind of cooperation, and I believe you'll give it to us. But this has got to come. And when you people that represent the labor movement over the length and breadth of the state of Mississippi do this, then these people that have made it their business of creating trouble in this state will find out that they can no longer do that. Now, there's one other area I want to touch on. Just recently, there were some newspaper articles that caused some local unions who are not affiliated with this organization, and some of them never have been, to issue some rather harsh statements about President Ramsey and about this council. And they knew not one cotton-picking thing about what it was about. I'm just being plain and honest. Now, I say that those people didn't have any right to castigate Claude Ramsey and this council without they want to put their money where their mouth is. And I bitterly and deeply resent it. And I'd say that if this is my grandpappy, president of the local. Now, if an affiliated organization wants to know what the facts of life are, they're entitled to it. My friend, as I said, I'm just talking plain and sincere. So I say again, that you people, you are the people that we've got to have to help us, to back us up in the 2 years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Larry. I guess I better use the seniority system on here. Brother Schaefer, would you like to have a word to say?
Thank you, Brother Ramsey. I didn't exactly know that I had seniority. I would say that it is with all humility that I possess that I come before you this afternoon as newly elected Vice President of the State Organization. Consider it a real privilege. I would say that just because the board, me in particular, was elected by acclamation in this convention, doesn't make me feel any less responsibility to you people. I sometimes think that I have more responsibility than I'm capable of carrying out. The days get pretty long and the work gets pretty tiring. But the response of you people always gives us new life, new channel in which to channel our energies. I would say that it has been a real privilege to serve for the past 2 years, and I look forward to serving the next few years. And I just hope that the statement that I made at the last convention will prove in the next 2 years to be true. I said at that time that because of some legislation which had been passed and was pretty evident would be new passed, that the past 2 years would be the roughest years of the labor movement in the state of Mississippi. I think we can meet here
be to come back to the convention 2 years from now, or wherever it will be held, say that we have an affiliation of 30,000, 35,000 people. They will have delegates in convention. This, to me, would be most indicative of the best accomplishment that this organization could have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Shaver. Brother Taylor, what you doing sitting down in the audience? You want to have a word to say? Slipped off on us here tonight. All right. Vice President Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I guess I'd better apologize for being out of the hall when the obligation was given. The schedule is a little bit cockeyed, and I've got a little bit cockeyed. Thought it necessary to leave the auditorium for just a few minutes. When I got back, the job had been done. So I guess I'll take mine a little bit later. I expect just about all has been said that could very well be said. You heard about every kind of a speech there is in the book, and some that's never been put in the book. And I don't believe I could say a lot of things that hadn't already been said a whole lot better than I could say it. But I would certainly like to say this, and sum it up right quickly, that I have appreciated the friendship and the support of all of the people that's represented in this organization. You know our organization, I'm not too well affiliated. But we have attempted to work with all of the various segments of organized labor wherever and whenever we have had the opportunity. That will continue to be our objective, and that will continue to be our aim. Anytime that we can be of assistance to any organization whatsoever, just feel free to call us and ask us, and if we can do it, we'll be happy to do it. As you know, I might need to say this, since our organization is one of the building trades, you may know, or you may not know, that just lately, since the last convention that has been organized, the State Building Trades Council. The State Building Trades Council recognizes the Mississippi AFL-CIO as being the parent organization as such. It will be our intention as building tradesmen to attempt to affiliate all of the building trades with the State Building Trades Council. Then in turn, as far as we are able to do so, to bring the same organization into affiliation with the Mississippi AFL-CIO. I want that, I felt like that needed to be said. I've been happy to be here, happy to see all of you again, and I wish for each and every one of you a safe journey home, and the Lord bless you until we see you again. Thank you very much.
Brother Taylor, not Brother Brown. Would you like to have a word to say?
Mr. Chairman, officers, and delegates, I am indeed grateful for the honor of being elected Vice President of this organization. And I do know that we have a tough fight ahead. I know in our section of the state, we have a number of past who are not affiliated, and some new ones who have never been. And it's going to be our great effort to try to get those, all of them, affiliated with them for the next convention, so that we have a better state, and they will have a better living and a better understanding. Thank you.
Edwards?
just want to say thank you for your confidence in me to serve as one of your vice presidents for the next few years. I would like to say this, however, that this group of people sitting on the platform before you are your servants. They are here to do what you want them to do with your cooperation. Without your expression of your wants, without your expression of cooperation, there's very little that this group of people can do. When ridicule might be spread upon one of us for what is said or done, you, the delegates to this convention, can, in your locals back home, in your central bodies, you can bring that ridicule to rest by having it directed to the source. And I'm sure that a proper explanation can be made. Some of our members in our locals, something is said or done by a local officer. A group of members will get together. They will talk about that local officer. They ridicule him or she among themselves without bringing it out in the open and bringing it to the person who is responsible. So we would ask your cooperation in doing this. We would ask your cooperation in the program that will be put forward by this group of people on the platform in the next 2 years. And the gentleman who spoke just a little while ago of the sparrow that the man had in his hand. Whatever job is done in the next 2 years in the labor movement in the state of Mississippi, you hold the answer in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Edwards. I'm going to start at this end. Brother Dees, would you like to have what to say?
I'd like to express my thanks and confidence that in me as a board member of the state Mississippi AFL-CIO. Any time that I can serve in a labor movement, it is an honor to be to do it. And I hope I can live up to the trust that you put in.
I appreciate the confidence you have in me, electing me, and just hope I can be of some help to you.
How about that young lady?
I'd just like to say thanks for electing me. It's a great honor, and I'll do my best to serve in the way I can help this organization as well.
Clark?
I'd like to say one thing. I live in one of the most, I guess you could call it, disagreeable sections of this state we have. One of the most controversial. I think that the convention has done a wonderful thing this year of enlarging their board members and the vice president to get the word out to more of the people and get a little more communications out to help everybody understand the problems more. even though we tried and missed in the committee to get something within all the districts where it'd be spread out, y'all responded and give us that representation. So I'd like to thank each one of you, that anything we can do, anything we can be of service to you, be an honor to do.
Without being repetitious of what's already been said, I just have to add ditto. And thank you people for the confidence that had been left through the second time. I will try to justify it for you. Thank you. These days, really got a nice looking boy.
I'd like to say thank you to all the delegates who put their trust in me to be back on the executive board for another 2 years. Anytime that I might be of assistance to any of you, please call on me. I'll be happy to serve you. Thank you.
Moss?
Mr. President, members of the board, delegates, I'd like to take just a moment to express my appreciation to all of you for electing me yesterday to this office, an office of such responsibility, and promise you that I will work very diligently in the next 2 years to help all organized labor in Mississippi attain the goals which we're all striving for. So, thank you.
To the Mr. Chairman, the President, delegation, I would like to say to you that it is a great honor for me to have the privilege to serve on this board for the next 2 years. I consider this a privilege not because I am a Negro, but because I'm an American citizen who realizes the need of unity among the people in this state to promote the principles to achieve what we are looking for and what we are talking about in this state. And in conclusion, I would like to say again, thank to each of you, and I dedicate myself to the proposition of doing everything I can and working with this board to help promote these principles. And when the chapter of the new day that Brother Ramsey talks about is completed in the history of tomorrow, I would like to be proud to say that I played a part. Thank you.
I'd pause you just a minute to tell you that Brother Woodson is a member of the executive committee of the Board of Registration and Education League, and I'm sure that he meant what he meant here was that he's going to do everything he can to help put together a coalition of forces to get the job done in Mississippi.
Brother Negate.
Well, I don't know of anything I could add to what has been said by the present officers of the Mississippi AFL-CIO. And I want to take this privilege to thank you, dear delegates, for putting the trust in me to serve my 3rd term as a board member of this organization. And I'd like to take this privilege to invite the next generation of the Mississippi AFL-CIO to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi.
Thank you, Brother Negate. Now, we are under good and welfare. You heard from your board, the newly elected officers. Let me say I'm looking forward to working with this group. I think you've made a very wise selection. We've got a much more representative group now than we've ever had, in my opinion. We've got representation in areas of the state that we haven't had any representation, and we have sorely needed that representation to have an effective organization. I just want you to know that I appreciate the job you've done, the board that you've given Tom and myself to work with. Do we have anyone from the audience who would like to have a word to say before we adjourn the convention? Do we have any announcements? I'd like to remind the board that we want them to meet with us in the Silver Room about 3 o'clock as soon as we adjourn and can get everything together. Let me take this opportunity to wish for you, all of you, a successful trip home, and we're certainly looking forward to seeing you, all of you, in the near future. We will be having some plans for future programs we'll be discussing with the board. We have the fair project, as Tom has already told you. This is going to be a tremendous job, but we think it's going to be worthwhile. We'll get a lot of good publicity out of this. Then in the spring, we feel that we should set up a series of workshops around about the state, preparing our people for the election that we'll be going to in the fall. As you've already been advised, the Mississippi legislature will be reapportioned again before we elect another legislature. And we're going to find ourselves in a much better position when this is done. And it means that we're going to have to really go to work when this happens. And if we do the job that we are capable of doing, when the legislature, the new legislature convenes, and if we get the right governor elected, then I think we can start seeing some real progress made in Mississippi. But it's going to take an awful lot of work, and we're going to be looking towards you people to help us get that job done. Brother Thompson.
Brother Ramsey, Jack Thompson, CWA Hedgesburg. I'd like to take this time to commemorate you and the board members and our fellow members here on this wonderful meeting we've had. And I think it ought to go down as one of the most constructive and best meetings that we've ever had, and I think if we really get a wonderful job done, it's coming 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Thompson. Thank you. We have, if nothing else, we've been pretty well on schedule. This is the first convention that I can remember that we've actually been ahead of schedule on a few occasions. Anyone else? Brother Dave?
Someone last night picked up a coat from the state, and I have his. If everybody will check. See if you have your coat, I'll be glad to swap it.
What about Lon Gilstrap? What about Lon Gilstrap? Has he found his? There's 2 of them, Lon Gilstrap, Brother Dave. Do we have anyone else? Make sure we give you the opportunity. Now, how about this young lady there? She wanted to talk to you the other day. Well, if there's nothing else to come before the convention, I now declare the 3rd biennial convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO sine die adjourned.